Yeah, man. I just literally a few seconds ago, I was just doing some sun gazing because I don't
Ooh.
really ever do it. I just wanted to try it, and now I can't really see. So I was wondering if you ever do that, and do you ever see any benefit from it? I only
100%.
did it for like 10, 20 seconds.
So the trick about it that I've figured out is, and it's really just based on like stuff I've seen from like Aztec culture, just like native cultures, is I sun gaze within the first hour and the last hours of the day. So like usually I
Okay.
try not to go past like 45 minutes like from sunrise, but that's one of my favorite things with my early clients when I'm waiting for them to show up is just like posting up outside, just gazing at the sun until it turns into that just kind of like soft white, and then you start
Yeah.
to see all the dope stuff.
Yeah, then I start to like lose my vision. Like I look away in a little bit, but it's like it's still there. Like I don't know if that's good. I feel like the idea that you have is right because the sun is a little too powerful like where I'm at right now. So I think yeah, like right before it goes down and right after it comes up is probably the best time.
Yeah, yeah. It's when like the UV rays apparently aren't as strong. But I'm trying to think too, because I think he lives in Hawaii or some like tropical island somewhere. There's some guy who's like another like breatharian or whatever people want to call those that have really tapped into the physical body's potential. He does that as like his sustenance. So he just like every morning, just out there, just doing his thing.
And he doesn't eat.
No, he just does that, and then he does it at night too, and that's like his juice to get going through the day.
I've heard a lot about that, man. I mean, do you believe that's true?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that's the thing though, is you have to get to a certain point of unfoldment, right? Because we only experience what we perceive and what we're aligned with in that sense. So until
I know
we
what you
get
mean.
to these, you know what I mean? Until you get to that point of where your body turns those triggers on again. Because realistically, I'm thinking mine was probably like my first pranic, like first breath, as I consider it, was one of my first water fast when I just like stopped drinking water and I was just really just because I got sick every time I would take a sip, and I was just like, oh, okay, apparently my
Really?
body's telling me, yeah. So it was
Wow.
like 3 days of like heavy detox, and then probably like the fourth day I had water. The fifth day, my body was like, any water that I would try to drink, it would just immediately like purge up. So I was like,
Wow.
okay, I will listen to the body. No more water for right
Do you hear
now.
that rumbling? Is that on? Oh, there's a train going by. I live right near train tracks. Sorry to interrupt. I was like, what is that?
It's all good, yo.
Do you hear
Yeah. Oh yeah, now I hear it. Yeah, yeah. I grew up by train tracks too, so I'm like, that's my vibe.
it?
I love it. That rumbling. But yeah, so like it was a little bit into the water fast when I was meditating outside for my morning session, and it just felt like my crown opened up. And then from there,
Oh,
like when I took a breath, it wasn't just through the nose and from the lungs, like I could feel it pouring through
like
from the
literally
crown.
feel the prana, feel the energy.
Yeah.
It's
And
almost
then
like, do you think you have to like believe in that? Like almost like a placebo thing? Like the
to a
power
degree,
of
yeah.
belief is real. Like once you can
Oh yeah.
fully convince yourself that the sun is feeding you, then yeah, the sun will be feeding you type of thing. Like you
Yeah.
think it's like that?
Yeah, I think, well, it comes back to that almost like a salesman and foot in the door type of vibe. Like you have to have that initial kind of like curiosity and yearning for it too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's just like the belief. You have to really kind of want it. It's that will, and
Yeah.
then that's where like I feel like we evoke our powers again.
That's
And
crazy.
then when you experience it, you know it, and that's the ultimate form. So then it's just like, oh, whoa, that was different. That hit different.
That's crazy, man. Imagine if we could all just live off of the sun. Like we wouldn't have to eat. We wouldn't have to kill anything anymore because that's what we do to survive. We just
Right.
literally, we all just like, but imagine like billions of people all at the same time. We're all just looking at the sun.
You know how peaceful that would be? Everyone waking up in the morning and
It's sun time.
like doing that immunity really quick. That'd be, I don't know. I vibe with it.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I mean, there's so much more that we're capable of that we just don't tap into. It's just a matter of, like you said, you have to kind of want to tap into it, you know? But I
Yeah.
mean, it's almost like there's no limits to what at least we're definitely not at our limits, that's for sure, for what we know about our body and the capabilities of it and like how we survive. You know what I mean? We're so
Yeah. Oh yeah.
disconnected from connection, true connection with like what it means to be a human being, you know, and how to like fully utilize
Yeah.
the tool of our body effectively. Like we're kind of just like functioning at a very
Mm.
shallow level in terms of the energies that are present and that we can take in if we really want to, you know,
Yeah.
taking in the wrong energies or maybe just not enough, or
100%, man.
maybe, yeah, just expand our horizons a little bit. Like,
Hmm.
we think we got it all figured out. You know what I mean? We think that, like, you know, we got nuclear power, we got gas, and that's it. Like, let's stop right there. But like, there's so much more we can tap into and like utilize in terms of like energy output and energy input, because it's all just comes down to like energy
Hmm.
input, like what you're taking in and what you're taking out at our body and like everywhere. Like, everything is just like this input output process, right? I was thinking the other day about
Oh yeah.
I watched this other thing about Brian Forrester. I don't know if you know who that guy is. He's like into like ancient megalithic artifacts, but he's a cool
Mm.
guy. But so he there's this room in one of the pyramids, I think, or like one of some Egyptian structure that only
Yeah.
resonates at Om, and that's it. Like any other noise, I guess it didn't resonate, but when people for some reason did Om, it
Yeah. Yeah.
vibrated
Yeah.
at a certain rate. And then he said because of that, somehow he figured out, or there,
Hmm.
you know, he has a hypothesis that the pyramids, the structures were used for like a power plant, right? And actually, Ancient
Yeah.
Alien says that as
Oh yeah.
well. So I think they're actually onto something there. and I think it
Oh
has to
yeah.
do with sound. I was thinking about how, what if we just
Mm.
harvest sound energy, right? Because sound is a type of energy.
Ooh.
Like this, everything is just vibration, right? So
Yeah.
if we can harvest the
Yeah. Yeah.
vibrations
Yeah.
of sound, it's like we have the ultimate renewable resource. If we can somehow, I'm not saying I'm smart enough to do it. I'm just the one that is thinking of it, because it almost seems like that's what they did in the past. Like, they had these
Yeah.
structures that were
Oh
able
yeah.
to like almost like charge batteries or like have some kind of power plant
Yeah.
through sound. And I think it had to do with
Yeah.
uh, certain resonance in these structures, like pyramids. I don't know. I'm going off. This is a conspiracy
I
already,
love it.
but might be going a little too much into it. But all I'm trying to say is, I think if we can reverse engineer the vibration of sound, we might be onto something. It's a thing. It's called energy harvesting. I was looking up. Like, people have actually done research into this, and for some
Yeah.
reason we're just not paying attention. Maybe it's not worth it right now. But I think all I'm trying to say is
Gets
there's a lot
depressed
more.
because it is. That's
Yeah, right.
gets
It's too
depressed
good.
because it is, yo. Well, I
Exactly.
think that's the thing it's really funny. I interviewed a person named David Hulse. He's the founder and creator of Soma Energetics, and he makes tuning forks to like the solfeggio frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And in some of the little goodies that I got from doing the interview, like just reading through the history of it, our musical scale changed, you know, from like Pythagoras going into like the original sounds to like our what we know now as like the C to C scales.
Yeah.
And it used to be a little bit different. But the thing is, when you change that, it changes the way we chanted music, hymns, all the different types of different religions. It all started to change that. So I think one of the biggest kind of, if you want to dive right in the conspiracy aspect of it, is like I think that is one of the biggest conspiracies is the hidden nature of what sound truly is and does.
Yeah.
Um, because there's like all the water experiments from Emoto, I think probably so probably butchered the dude's name, but it was like the Japanese philanthropist scientist who was the one who did like positive talk to water versus like hurtful things.
Oh yeah.
And so when we think about it like that, yo, like it's not just Egypt too. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's one of the ones that starts with a Y, but it's down in South America. Their entire pyramid structure is set up like a computer chip, like a
Oh wow.
processor. And
Wow.
like they literally zoom back from it, like from that aerial shot, and you see it matches point by point to what we have as literally a computer chip. So I think the one thing about the ancient tech that they were able to tap into is that it was just much more harmonious with the natural energies that are like we are energy. We're
Mm-hmm.
gods and goddesses of creation. Like what how does every religion or philosophy start the creation of the universe? Sound,
Mm.
right,
Oh
it's oh
yeah.
exactly, it's that oh the divine chord, and then everything
Mm.
just comes into manifestation. So like I think there is a lot more to it than what we're taught, obviously, and like the power
Yeah.
of words, the power of speech. And I think that's one of the things you pick up when you're like when you do water fasting is like by the end of the fast you're so sensitive to energy, you realize like how strong words can be and
Mm.
how intense of like energy it actually takes to really speak a lot. and to
Yeah.
talk a lot and to have a lot of words talked at you.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
dude,
interesting.
you're onto it. I think that's the vibe. Like,
Yeah. Well, think about it, right? In that study, right, the guy, he said good words and then he said bad words to the water, right? Pretty much
yeah,
positive and negative words. And the positive, didn't it form some kind of like some mandala
beautiful,
effect?
yeah, beautiful, like essentially like all sacred geometry of like the crystalline structures of the water. Like you could just
Mm-hmm.
see it where like when it would form into ice, you'd be like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Like, oh, like
Yeah, like
just you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like
it's
this
a
type of
good
stuff.
energy. Yeah, exactly. And then the negative one was it just like no symmetry whatsoever? Like there was no
Yeah.
order or something like
Broken
that?
crystals, nothing that was really structured properly in terms
All
of
right.
like connections. Yeah.
So we're 70% water, right?
Yeah.
So when people are literally doing that to at a macro level, micro level, it's also happening at a macro level in us. It's that
Ooh.
simple, man. Energy. It's
Yeah.
just like when it's almost like it's a sixth sense. It's like I can't
Mm.
see it. I can't. Well, I can hear it, but I'm not necessarily. When you can see it from a different way. It's like being able to
Hmm.
um, follow the energy and how it works at different layers of
Yeah.
our life. It's hard to explain. You kind of just have to. It's like a I don't know, man. When you understand that it's all vibration, everything is literally just vibration. You can see how all the vibrations are interrelated. And the thing is, we think for some reason that we're separate from the vibrations. We're separate from the vibe. It's like, no, we are the vibe.
Right. We're just a different resonance, but it's all the same,
Yeah.
like it's all the same flow.
Yeah, man.
So
Yeah.
speaking of that though, like so bringing it back to the Soma energetics, and if you're curious, I would look up energybodytuners.com.
Mm.
Because I started, let me know if you pick up that.
Oh, wow. What is that, dude?
So this is it's the ohm frequency. It's like Earth's tuning. And yo, it blew my mind the moment I started to ground with this. So I would like, because I usually do like my little like morning breath work routine up outside like nice old maple tree. So I'll post up, tap that one breath into the right ear, just like breathe while one hand's on the tree, and I can literally feel it coming from the feet like up.
Wow.
It's so it blew my mind. Like honestly, I was shocked. It was one of those things where I was like, I didn't really have any expectations. I was just like, okay, cool, I'll check it out. Like I do singing bowl stuff. I know it's pretty calming, but what's the real power behind this? And it drastically changed my practice. And it's opened up a
Mm.
new avenue in which I actually like help people heal, like in terms of like, because it's really you're creating the space and they heal themselves, but like the frequencies kind of like force the body to tune. And
Yeah.
that's the stuff that trips me out because it's like his the way he has it is it's like it's the six centers and then the crown chakra is actually all of them at once, and that's like it's a heavenly sound if I had to express it, because it's just like all of the harmonies of the physical being expressed in one, and then it's just
Mm-hmm.
like the heart just starts to go like, dude, like I'm telling you, like energybodytuners.com, tap in, it's super dope. Like
I'm definitely gonna tap in. Shout out Energy Body Tuners. Yeah.
oh yeah,
So
David
do you
Holz.
hit do you hit it and then it just
Yeah,
vibrates?
yeah, yeah. So like I just hit my palm and then that gives the, it's
Wow.
like singing bowls on steroids.
That's pretty cool, man. I've
So I
never
gotta,
heard of that.
yeah, so I got to give a shout out to David Holsa, Soma Energetics. You know, he really has been really divinely led just from his experiences and going on in life in terms of like the early manifestation of it started when he was like 17, and it's just been building and building and building. And yeah, there I think that's probably the future of healing is
Sound
tapping into,
therapy.
exactly, tapping. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we already do it in terms of like the, if you want to think about like the medicine, sports medicine field, they already do that with light. You know, they've already recognized that certain frequencies of light like red and orange really help the body recover.
Yeah.
There's no different with sound. Like sound's
Mm-hmm.
even more powerful because that actually can like travel through the body and shake every cell. And when we think about like just the properties of water like you were mentioning, dude, I mean, we really don't even know what we were capable of. Like
Yeah.
it blows my mind all the time.
Mm-hmm. It's just we're just an input output machine. So like you just once you realize
Yeah.
that the spiritual path, kind of putting it simply, is like know what you're inputting, so that you
Yeah.
can further your own output a little bit better. It's that simple. So and then you start to figure
Yeah.
out what energies you want to take in terms of literal sound, light, uh, stories, friends,
Right.
anything, music, especially music. It's just
Ooh, Yeah.
it's pretty simple when you think about it. Like, is if you really want to hone this body a little bit better, it's just like, all right, well then I have to hone what I'm putting in it a little
Yeah.
bit better. Your energetic diet. It's that simple,
Ooh,
man.
that's a hot phrase right there. I love that. The
Right?
energetic diet. It's
It's
so
more than
true
just
though.
your regular diet.
Well, we feel it all the time. I think that's the thing that people forget is like anytime you're at work with someone who's really toxic and gossipy, or you have to hear a really like long, drawn out, just like I don't want to say like a ramble or a rant, but something that's really kind of negative, not really
Yeah.
uplifting and positive, it weighs
Mm-hmm.
us down. We
Mm-hmm.
feel sluggish after, we feel drained. Like I've heard drain so much from too many people or too much peopling, as I like to call it. Like, yeah, dude. Sometimes it's like sound is one of the most important things. It is the people and the beings you surround yourself with. And I really like the aspect of music. I think music is something that probably is the most, I don't want to say distorted, but it's probably the most off the mark in terms of what aligns with the human spirit. Where a lot of
Like
like,
popular music, you're saying?
yeah, like
Oh
mainstream
yeah.
mainstream stuff is like, I'm sure those frequencies don't align with the body at all.
No
Like,
way. I mean, that's another conspiracy too, is that people say that our music is tuned to 440 hertz, and then that's a little bit off of 432, which is ohm, supposedly. And it's like, did they do, is that deliberate? Or it just so happened to be like that? Because if that's actually true and that's deliberate, then that is 100% a mind control
oh
effect
yeah,
from somebody. Somebody figured that out because
like a spell.
yeah, it's just pretty much a spell. And then like think of the things that popular music is saying. It's in a rhythmic pattern, bro. And they're kind of like
So
throwing you off on
true.
that vibe. It's like, is it? I don't know. It
It
seems a little
is.
suspicious.
It's kind of checking off all the boxes for a seance and a spell. Like,
Pretty much. And those seances and spells and those rituals are played every morning before people go to work, and then every afternoon after they go home, bro. Pretty much. I mean, most people
yeah,
don't listen to no music in the car. It is a cool experience though to just drive and have nothing. That is actually like, it's kind of like a meditation in a way, and
yep.
it's probably a little bit safer.
I'm that weirdo dude that like for me for years that was like my space just to like prepare. Well, it was when I was working in the pharmaceutical industry, so I would like I'd have to mentally prepare to like go in there and do the work I had to do because it just didn't align with like who I was at the time at all. I was
Hmm.
essentially like waking up from all that, and that was kind of like a routine that I ended up getting into, and I liked it so much that I've just kind of kept it going. If
Yeah.
anything, I'll listen to like a talk or a lecture, but like, yeah, man, I think the car is the most meditative space because it's like that the body is forced to do something.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't recommend it if you can't multitask, but like the body literally has a task to do. And it's those times when you time skip, you're like, wait, I'm already here. Oh, I'm already here. Like, ooh, that was a little dangerous. Like,
Yeah. Right.
yeah,
It's
it
crazy.
totally is. It's perfect. Ooh, speaking of meditations, man, I love that little 6 hour live stream meditation. I tapped in for a little bit. I was just like, there you go. Get it.
Yeah, that was probably, that was one of the most intense experiences that I've had in terms of like things that I've done, in
Mm,
terms of like exploring my my consciousness, I guess you could say.
yeah.
That was probably the toughest, man, because there was nothing stopping me from just getting up. But it was almost like I wouldn't have done that without me filming myself, because it's like
Ooh,
it's like I recognize that like I'm gonna have to want to prove that to myself in the future that it's possible. So I have to film myself and show
true.
myself that it is. So at the same time, I'm like, dude, I can't quit. Like I gotta use this as a message in a way. And it
Yeah.
worked, because like any other time I'm just like, I'm just gonna get up. Like there's nobody watching, I guess. So it was weird.
Right.
It's like I use my own ego to meditate, go into this long meditation,
Ooh, that's a
right?
nice one. Like, that's interesting.
It
I
was
like that.
but it was cool. I mean, most of the time it went from really peaceful to like times where I'm just like, all right, I can't do this anymore. And I'm like started sweating and just like feeling uncomfortable, and then going back to peaceful, and then
Mm,
sweating. And then I had to do, in order to calm my mind, I had to do breathing exercises, like
yeah.
Tumo meditation and fire of breath and stuff like that, because I just couldn't sit there, I guess. It was actually because of the pain. Because if you do those kind of exercises with the breath, you can kind of numb your own pain. So like you'll probably, if anybody wants to go through and watch the 6 hours of meditation, they'll see that at times I'm doing these like really intense breathing exercises, and it
Yeah.
wasn't because like of that I wanted to like get higher or anything. It was literally because my back was hurting. So I was like, I have to see if I can kill this pain in a way. And it actually worked, which is pretty cool. Like shout out Wim Hof. You know Wim
Right.
Hof?
Oh yeah, yeah. Making
Yeah,
pranayama mainstream, which is dope.
for real. He's the man. Like, I mean, those exercises, breathing exercises, go way further back than Wim Hof. He's
Yeah.
just like the cheerleader for the whole thing. Like
Oh
he's
yeah.
the guy to bring it to everybody. But yeah, in terms of like tapping into your being, staying on that kind of idea, using the breath and learning how to use it in different techniques is a very effective way to tap
Hmm.
into kind of you can kind of shift your well-being in a way. Like Wim Hof doesn't get
Oh yeah.
sick, and
Right.
I don't get sick.
See, and that's so important is most people from what I've, especially from like the if you want to think like the fitness, wellness, personal training aspect, I've encountered quite a few people who don't know how to breathe when they move their body around.
Hmm.
You know, it's like how much they strain their breath. And I mean, there is a certain aspect of when you want to strain your breath in a sense of like pushing through something, but usually it's like exhale on exertion, really focus on having those deep belly breaths, abdominal control.
Yeah.
And most people are just mouth breathers. And
Hmm.
it's just like the main filtration system just gets skipped, going straight into the mouth and the throat. And you just got to think like, when we look at the concept that everything is energy, I think that's one thing that kind of like got brushed under the rug in this kind of like latest happenings of all the stuff going on in the world is there was a ton of like government documents that got released that were just like that confirmed everything like a lot of us in the spiritual community have been talking about, that like we live in a matrix of light, it's all energy, that they're, it's built upon fractals, and not a peep
Hmm.
like didn't get any traction. But it's like this has literally been in every ancient knowledge and ancient like civilization since the beginning, since they started doing oral traditions and writing stuff down, that like everything is energy. Like, so the fact that we are technically in an ocean or in like the ether itself, all of it makes so much more sense when we think of the power of breath, the power of sun gazing, the power of sound, in terms of really aligning ourselves with the universal flow, if that's a way to put it, or
Hmm.
just like attuning to the fact that like everything is energy and you are energy. Like the atoms don't touch. We just believe we're touching, we're believing
Yeah.
all these things. But I mean, I've had some pretty trippy meditation experiences, especially some group meditation experiences where I felt like I was nose to nose with certain people. Like I felt like the bridge of the heart open up, like we were connected. And um, have you done eye gazing before?
Um, I don't think so. No.
So there's a person I'm seeing right now, and me and her were doing eye gazing, and it was the most wild experience, man. I
Just
like,
sitting there and staring at each other's eyes.
it felt like it went by in like 2 seconds. It was 10 minutes where it like had so much of a kind of a release and a psychic connection. Like I felt her emotions,
Wow.
and like I felt the release. I felt like the apprehension aspect, like the tensions, and then I felt the release, and she felt mine. It was a similar thing, but like obviously it came from like what I was feeling in the moment. And
Hmm.
when we were kind of like chatting afterwards, I was like, oh, so like I felt, this emotion, and then it kind of melted away with like some of these types of like thoughts or impressions. And she was like, yeah, that was me. And I was like, okay, what did you experience? And then I was like, yeah,
Mm.
that was me. So the fact that that happened, and there were so many different like moments of just knowing, we're just like, we got to do it again. And then so we did it right back to back. And the same one, like the bridge of the heart just got even stronger. It was just like, it's such a profound level of intimacy that we can all tap into, that I think is like, I recommend that to everybody,
Mm.
just like staring into the eyes, just it's not even like seeing into the soul. It really is just you're allowing the hearts to fully unfold.
Yeah, that's
And when
powerful.
you can feel the energy. And I've had a few different meditation experiences where like breathing was in sync, where it felt like we were almost passing energy back and forth to each
Oh
other.
wow.
There's a group meditation that I did, and it was the same thing where it's like I just felt the different people who were tapped in. And obviously it's not like everyone I know exactly who it is, but like I felt a few different resonances and energies that felt so intimate and close. And then
Mm-hmm.
I had another satsang, and one of the participants from the group meditation, it was the same thing. It was just like, yo, like I can feel you. Like, yeah. So, I mean, I think when you experience that type of stuff, it's just, you can't look back into the recognition of that we're just separated from time and space. Like, it's such an illusory concept when you really can connect with someone from miles away.
Mm,
And it feels like they're in the same room with you. Like they're literally touching you.
that's
It blows
powerful.
my mind every time. Like, life is
Yeah.
dope.
It really is, man. That's just like how that's how we started this conversation was that there's so much more that we can tap into. And we just, I mean, a lot of people are, but the majority of human beings don't know that layer of reality is even existent, that you can tap into other people that you're not in the room with. And it's a sixth
Yeah.
sense, dude. I like I said, I think it is like another layer. Like if there's, layers of our reality, it's like how we kind of like feel the energy in a way at the foundation is the five senses. But I do think you open up, I think they're called CDs, right? They're called your powers.
Yeah.
So it's real. Because once you tap in, but you have to be able to tap in. And it sounds crazy if you don't know what that feels like, but I understand, man. Like I think that's makes 100% sense because it's like you said, once you feel it, there's no other way to see the world. Like once
Yeah,
you know,
you
it's like the
know it.
vibration, it's all just like the sense of vibration and flow, I guess.
Yeah.
Then there's no other way to I mean, there are other ways to see it, but I guess there's not a better way to see it. Like to know that the interrelatedness of everything is constant.
Yeah.
Then you start to, for me at least, I started to find a different direction in my life and like how I want to just conduct myself with people on an everyday basis, I guess, and conduct myself all together, like
Yeah.
everything. And that comes down to what I'm putting into my body, the energetic diet. you know,
Right.
like I stopped listening to popular music, like we talked about. I stopped hanging
Yeah.
out with certain people that just I know, I love them, but just I guess there's a point where you just outgrow people. You just kind of like
Right.
realize that it's you're like you said, the energy isn't right. There's something about I can't take that in. Like either way, like if you're with somebody, unless you're like Ramana Maharshi or something, if you're with somebody, you're gonna take on their energy.
Yeah.
There's even if you say I'm not going to, like no matter what, like you said, if someone's being toxic, it's gonna weigh it down one way or the other. Even if we try not to, it's just because I don't know. It's just like a magnet thing, like we attract certain things into our being, and
Yeah.
sometimes we're not even aware of it. And that goes further than people too. It goes everything, dude, especially
Yeah.
food. Like, are you
Ooh.
vegan?
So I'm essentially vegan now. From my recent water fast, that was one of the experiments that I wanted to do, was just try both full vegan. But I pretty much, for the most part, other than that, I was vegetarian. But vegan really wasn't much of a switch. I eat mostly fruit. Like,
Oh, fruit. Yeah, dude. I heard that fruit is actually like that's what we're supposed to eat as humans. It makes sense. We're apes. What do monkeys eat? They eat fruit.
yeah,
Like, come on now.
fruit and fibrous like veggies. But
Yeah.
realistically, like and I always like to think about it like, you want to talk energy in the sense of karmic energy, karmic debt. What is the only true food that is given as a gift?
Oh wow, that's good.
Fruit.
Fruit,
That's
and it
it.
actually it propagates from us eating it. Like it actually
Yeah,
benefits from
exactly.
us eating the
Yeah.
fruit. It's like we have that symbiotic relationship in terms of it giving
Yeah.
us energy, and we take the energy from the fruit trees, the fruit
Yeah.
plants.
And we
Yo,
fertilize and we distribute the seeds and create
yeah,
more. And it's a beautiful relationship. But it's like, that is the only food that you can say you don't harm any life.
that's powerful, man. You don't kill, like you don't take in, like yeah, in terms of your karma, like you don't kill anything. Like we
So
even kill plants, you know what I mean? Like we're still
exactly.
killing the plant.
And the thing is, that's even trippier is there's plant scientists who have figured out that they're emitting a sound in different chemicals when they get clipped and cut. Like
Damn.
plants know when like who's harvesting them, and they'll send signals to the other plants. They like the sound that they emit is actually almost like, I don't want to think about it's like grass or like, spinach or kale crying, but it's just like they emit their own sounds. They emit their own like chemical frequencies. And that's the thing right there where it's like, we're just not at that level to hear it or see it, but everything's communicating, everything is living. So I think that's just one of the trippiest things that I've noticed in terms of that switch is because again, for the most part, even before this water fast, this quarterly one, I pretty much just ate fruit most of the time anyway. I would dabble in cheese every now and then, but it's been a really drastic change where again, like I don't really need to eat much. And I'll get my blood work done any day. Like anyone wants to challenge that. Like, but the last time I did it, I was high in like everything. And, the doctor or my physician at the time was kind of almost, he was a little bit of a shit talker, being
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, well, cause I was doing another experiment where I was eating an avocado a day.
That's
And
it?
well, I was like, I would always make sure like I had like at my dinner at the end, I would have an avocado with everything. So I was one
Okay.
avocado every day for like 30 days in a mixture of like my seeds, my nuts, the fruit that I would pretty much eat most of the time anyway. And he was like, oh, you're probably deficient in this. Your cholesterol is probably gonna be really high because of all that avocado, blah, 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 blah. And my blood work came out great. He's like, oh, wow, you're above average in all of the good stuff. And I think it's your low density cholesterol, like the negative one. That was like almost non-existent. It was very, very, very small. And he was just like, I'm okay. Keep doing what you're doing. But I was like, yeah, thanks, man. Like,
Yeah. Just because you're a doctor doesn't mean you're tapped in, man.
well,
It
and
really comes down to being tapped
that's it
in.
right there. Yeah. Well, again, it comes back to what you mentioned earlier, where it's almost like you can experience like whatever your knowledge is at, that's what you experience. And you kind of have to believe something to open yourself up to the experience of it. Where there's so much insanity in our world. I think that's the reason why spirituality and those who are kind of tapped in on that path are deemed crazy, because everything seems crazy when you look at how batshit nutty our society is. And what is it, Terrence McKenna, like there's nothing greater than waking up from like the mass uh hallucinogenic effect of like our insane society.
Mm-hmm.
Like you start to see it for the craziness it is, and it's like, yeah, it's pretty accurate because it doesn't resonate with anything we are. And I want to touch on a point that you said that really sparked a thought. It was like the when you said the five senses and then started talking about energy. Okay, so this is just a random thought. Well, I'm just curious on your thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the five physical senses, right? We're in a dualistic experience of spirit embodied in matter. So the matter has five senses. Wouldn't energy have five senses as well?
Mm.
Our energetic body has the five
You mean
senses.
like our
Like,
spirit in a way?
yeah, because think about,
Tapping into spirit?
well, yeah, because like life always reveals these things in the subtleties. Like anytime there's about to been a fight to break out, when something bad was going to happen, we can always usually feel the tension, and like we call it tension in a room, but we can feel that there's some type of frequency that's traveling through that's like, ooh, this is uneasy, this is unnerving, like
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just one
Yeah.
of the thoughts of it. And even the sense of like sound, people hearing sound, seeing energy, all of those
Mm-hmm.
things are the energetic aspects, the clair audience, clair sentient, all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
So
tapping into your senses in a different way.
yeah, just the
Mm.
intangible ones, the ones that we don't have the modern day tech to quantify, if that's the way to put it.
Yeah, like you can't do a study on the vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Damn. I mean, yeah, like you said, dude, this world is it's pretty much insanity at this point. And Terrence McKenna said, yeah, culture is not your friend. I'm starting to really understand that as
Mm,
every day that goes by. That culture is not your friend. It's
yeah.
not. You have to create your own culture, pretty much, or at
Yeah.
least the culture of the divine, the culture of,
Ooh.
the vibe, pretty much. There
Yeah.
is, like that. This whole tapping in type of thing is really just us tapping into a new way to live, but it's not. Even though we all do it on our own accord, like when that new way to live, it's still according to Dharma. Like that new way to live is according
Mm,
to like the way to live. Like right now, people think the American Western culture is the way, celebrities are the way. it's not the way. There actually is another way to tap in, and it's not just my opinion. There is an order to this universe, and
Yeah.
that is being able to tap into everything, like this earth, all the other energies. And if you listen to those energies, the right ones, they'll tell you how to live. And it
100%.
has, we're all on that same, like, you're doing your own thing, but you're tapped in. I'm doing my own thing, but I'm tapped in. There's plenty of other people in the world that are also tapped in, but they're doing their own thing.
Yeah.
But on the other side of them doing their own thing is like we almost have that same common goal. And I think it's to better, if you're really living according to Dharma, I believe you're bettering yourself,
Yeah.
not only in this lifetime, maybe in the next, and you're also bettering other people from that, not only in this lifetime, maybe in the next.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it's all about. It's like a sense of giving back,
Mm.
because you can have these abilities, you can have these superpowers, but maybe you can also use them for nefarious reasons as well.
Right.
And maybe that's how our false culture was created.
Yeah.
But you can be one of the good guys and tap into, those subtle energies, I guess, of our world, and use it to create a new culture in a way, and use it to create a new world that is actually the world that we were supposed to make. And saying supposed to, some people would be like, like a nihilistic statement would be, it's everything's random, it's just chaos, there is no supposed to or purpose. But I believe that we are living to some kind of plan. There is, like, this isn't random. Our conversation right now that we're having, and the listener listening to this right now, it's not random. This is all supposed to happen. This is according to some kind of plan. And
100%.
From there, once you kind of like tap into the plan, right? Some may say of God, some may say of consciousness, some call it Dharma, the force, the vibe. Once you tap in, there's no going back.
Right.
That's
don't
the
realize
way.
it.
Yeah. Wait, what'd you say?
I said, and most don't realize it.
Oh, I thought you said the hoes don't realize it. I was like, damn, man. I was like, okay.
No, you're nailing the head though. That is the way. That is the way though. And I think that's the coolest thing when you think about it in the sense of how we're talking about it in the sense of culture, is what is culture? It's right now, it's really something that is consumed. Culture, when people talk about culture, they don't really necessarily think of creating. And that's I think that's kind of like the switch of the kind of everyday human experience, or like the roller coaster of personhood, that you're seeking everything outside of you. And the moment that you actually take that inner gaze and look within, everything changes from that point, because it's, again, you're more mindful of what goes into your experience. You're starting to understand and distinguish between the observer and that which is observed. And then you start to have this really interesting, balancing act of how do you operate in this world when none of it resonates with you. And then that's where I feel like the magic sauce of life comes in, because the way I see, oh yeah, dude, because the way I see that this experience is that, like, the purpose of it is kind of, it has different steps to it depending on where you're at. Like the first step is, again, like, come to recognize who you are without all the conditionings, without all the other extra stuff. Like, who is the one observing and experiencing life? The one. And then exactly. And then from there, you come to the old sayings of, I searched for myself and found God. You awaken to that like interconnected oneness energy. And then I searched for God and found myself. And then the next phase of that turns into like this experience of, what are you? Like, what is your spirit really wanting to resonate and express? And that's when I feel like you start to get into the flow, the source, like, just expresses itself through you. And it's that balancing act of less is more. It's that tensionless state of just allowing life to flow through you. And that's where I see like the divine timing aspects start to really become more apparent. You start to see these, opportunistic coincidences where you're just in the right place at the right time, and you tap in with different people. And then from there, it's like, okay, once you really figure out like what brings joy to you and what you really like to express in this world, then it's this transformative process of like, okay, now express your gratitude for life through the gift of you. And that's
the gift of giving, creating.
Exactly. Whatever sparks joy with you, put that into the world. And that's truly, like, to me, the meaning of what culture was. But again, like, we look at the shamanistic cultures, the ancient cultures and civilizations, and they weren't based in this egoic sense of, oh, me, myself, and I versus the world. It was like, no, we are of Earth. We belong to Earth. We're here as, divine beings to be almost shepherds of the planet, to
Hmm.
experience life and enjoy it and to have fun, and really love and have laughter and express ourselves. But again, it wasn't based on taking things in. It was really based in harmony and continuing, I don't know, this beautiful dance of life.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
for real. The dance of the planet, the dance of Gaia. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you live through the ego, you're not dancing, man. There's no dance. You're for yourself. Because people like to dance with other people, man. So you can't get on the dance of life, and you can't boogie on the dance of life if you're all
Can't.
about yourself, man. A dance floor is filled with all other people. Everyone wants to be part of the dance. But the current culture, the current culture we have is not associated with that whatsoever, bro. It's all just a state of fear, like me, and
Yeah.
like all that I can take in for me. But once you tap in, you realize that me is you, and you are me, and we are the earth, and it's all related. So we better
Yeah.
think a little less about me, and maybe us, we,
Yeah.
and we
Right.
can all get on the dance. We can get on the dance floor and continue this beautiful plan. Like I said, there's some kind of plan going on, but we got
Yeah.
strayed off track somehow. I don't know how. Like, we must have lost our way
Ooh.
somewhere. Like, I feel like in the past, there's something inside of me that says that we were tapped in a little bit more. Like, getting back to
100%.
the pyramids, how we started this whole thing, they're resonating at a certain vibration, producing energy. They were probably tapped in a little bit more, but somewhere along the way, maybe it was some cataclysmic event, or maybe some kind of brainwashing, or maybe both, or I don't know what happened, but we lost our way, and we are disconnected from source. But you know we're able to tap back in. I think slowly we're tapping back in to this source energy that we were once
Mm.
connected with. But it's like this fight right now for that fake culture to stay in the mix. Like,
Mm.
it's going on very intensely right now. There's a lot of people that are lost in the sauce, but then there's also a lot of people that are like me and you. Like, I feel like we're good. Like, we're not. I don't fall
Yeah.
into that stuff, bro. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
into the noise. I'm not into the, like, I'm doing my own thing. I don't care what goes on online. I don't care
Right.
about the news. I don't care about anything on social media, bro. Like, I'm living my life. I'm doing this for fun. I don't care about this. I'm just like, this is all just for fun. There's people that actually care about, like, what happens online and on the internet to
Yeah.
themselves, bro. Like, once
Mm.
you get on this wavelength of um personal growth and taking in certain kind of energies, knowing what to take in,
Mm.
um you get very picky online, and you get very picky in terms of movies, in terms
Right.
of music, especially on, like, anything on social media, bro, because it can become literal mind control. It
Right.
really is, bro.
How quick you should a brain that would be a great study to look at, is how fast the brain shifts into like those almost like hypnotic states with all the
Yeah.
different entertainments and medias. Because I guarantee you, like TikTok is probably the highest one that is just like you're right into that like hypno state
Yeah,
of
you're
just
not on that
consuming.
creative state. You're getting
Yeah.
hypnotized by someone else's creation, and it's infinite. I
Yeah.
could scroll on TikTok all night if I wanted to and get a new video. It's like, it's a sickness. And that's not just
Right.
TikTok.
It's
Good, any social media
yeah.
now is based upon infinite amount of information
Mm.
going in, and
Yeah.
it's information that they know you're probably gonna like. Dude, it's mind control, bro. It's mind control, and people don't understand that it's literal. Like, you're literally being controlled by these entities such as Facebook, Twitter,
Yeah.
TikTok, Instagram. Like, it depends what you're following 100%, but there's a certain point where they know exactly what you're gonna like and what you're gonna respond to, and it
Right.
sucks you in. The point of it is, it's like, it sucks your energy in so that you're not tapped into your own being, which means essentially you're not tapped into source, which means essentially you're not creating, you're not living according to the plan. Because if you're living according to the plan, you realize that being a human being is a creator. So you're either, honestly, it's kind of like this. I know only a Sith deals in absolutes, but it's either it's either you're creating or consuming. I mean, you can find a good mix, but most people aren't on the creation side, right? But I think every single human being is a creator, no matter what. I think
Yeah.
there's just some kind of essence. Some people are better than others, obviously, but I think we're all here to create something more than just create other people, because that's really easy. We can all do that. But I think we all have a gift. We all have like something, our dharma, our svi dharma, something that we're specifically here for in these incarnations to further the plan. And if you're on TikTok all day, you're not furthering the plan, bro. It's really, it's not, dude. It's really a sickness. I've been thinking about that a
It
lot
is.
recently, and I've been trying to like stay off of the internet altogether
Right.
because it's become this entity of, like I said, propaganda, mind control,
Yeah.
and
Just
it's
fear,
not.
division.
Yeah,
Just
dude,
yeah.
it's bad. It's
Yeah.
not related to the source whatsoever and how we're supposed to tap in. But I mean,
Yeah.
if you know how to use it, I'm
Hmm.
not saying the internet's all bad and social media is all bad. Obviously, like, this
Yeah.
is gonna
Yeah.
go on YouTube. What I'm trying to say is like, it's not it's not tailored for most users to be able to use it effectively. It's either you use it effectively and you know how to like kind of navigate it, because it's still free for the most part. You can still navigate it and not get sucked into certain echo chambers and
Yeah.
ideologies and stuff like that. So if you know how to check yourself, you won't wreck yourself on the internet. But there's a lot of people that don't know how to check themselves. So
Yeah. Yeah. Just
it's just
egoically led the whole time. Just
yeah, they're being led by something like the it's like the unconscious ego.
mm,
It's the collective ego that we currently have of culture, man.
yeah.
It's pretty crazy, but like if you just know that it's all like, sometimes I go online, I'm just like, what? I'm like,
Why?
this is
Why not? I know
why?
exactly what you're talking about.
And I can just see right through certain things. I'm just like, come on, bro. Like seriously.
And it's so
And
blatant now.
yeah, it's so
To those
blatant
that can
now.
see, I should say that to those that can see, because again, it's just like it's uh it's kind of like if you're talking and you have like food in your teeth. Everyone else can see it. You don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the same thing here where it's like once you're in that realm and in that state of just consuming all that stuff, you don't realize that it's just seeping into your beingness, like just
Yeah.
naturally. And
That's the
that's the stuff
thing.
that's the terrifying aspect of it, is how many people are like subconsciously programmed on these levels just to be insecure, to seek that instant gratification that
Hmm.
they're. And I think it's really interesting when you talk about it in the sense of just like how it is designed, because I feel like it's all of those things. When you're consuming energy like that, you're naturally closing off your own ability to radiate, because you're
Hmm.
taking so much on, and then you're taking that karmic aspect of like the insecurities, the doubt, the self-worthlessness, all the different stuff that like the ego would play with, and it distances you further away from your own creative spark. So I
Yeah.
think that's the stuff that's pretty fascinating right there. And it's great because the one you talk about, like, clearly like the ancients, they were a little bit more tapped in. I'm actually going to quote you a little bit where on our creatives chat interview, when you were talking about like children and like they're closer to source, like
Hmm.
even physically time wise, they're closer to source. To me, I take that, and I was actually marinating that one for a little bit after, because I was like, I fuck with that. Like I like that. So it was this point of, I was looking at it in the sense of, okay, well, also recognizing the divine timing of things, that these things are all necessary to happen for the overall experience and evolution of whatever source, creator, consciousness, us, whatever you want to think about it as. But even in the ancients, they were more tapped into the spiritual aspects. They maybe didn't have certain things that we think are super high tech, but really is just incredibly materialistic. And I
Yeah.
feel like even as a society, we've gone through the same path that a lot of us have already gone through that are tapped in. Is that, when we're younger, we're already tapped into the source. We're already flowing effortlessly. We're getting the conditioning. And then, you have this choice to really dive deep into the egoic material world, or ascend. And some people probably do as kids if they have a certain environment. But for most people, we go through this process of, you have to go to the woods, you have to get lost, you have to go outside of yourself, the external search, before you really value what's within. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening as a society, is we're at this peak, we're at this like, we're end with our teenage years, and it's like the child doesn't want to grow up. And I feel like
Hmm.
that's where a lot of the turbulence is that there's a good majority of people who are like awakened, tapped in, like vibe with the flow, always in the go. It's one of those things where they're at that point where it's like it's time to let down and put away all the toys. Like it's time to take the step back home. And then there's this other portion of society that has no idea they're even somewhere else, that they're not even at their desired home. And
Yeah.
that's the real tricky part, because I mean, I don't know. I'll quote a recent person I was interviewing as well, and it was like, I want to invest myself in the energies that are breaking through, not the ones that are breaking down. And
Mm.
that was David Hulse again of the Soma Energetics. So shout out to you, David.
That's
Oh,
good.
it was a great one. And again, like I just got to give a shout out to them, like energybodytuners.com. Like I feel like that's the way you can naturally align yourself easily with sound and tap into some of the more intangible things that we may not be aware of. Like
Mm.
it's again, because it comes back to that point where we're coming back home as a
Mm-hmm.
society. It's that point of realization where we're not just physical beings living this mundane, monotonous life of, waking up, go to work, eat, go to sleep, and repeat. Like there's so many more people that I've seen just waking up to the sense of the falsehoods of this societal construct, that we're just like, yeah, no, I don't want to participate anymore.
Yeah.
And through that, it breaks down naturally. If like you don't play the game, then it can't keep going.
And the game can't play you.
That's the most important part. I think that's the negative feedback loop of the culture, is that when you're consuming, you're just adding to that wheel of just viciousness that's just going to keep fueling others to get trapped in it, because it's all
Mm.
energy again. Like, oh, imagine if people could see like the exhaust of cars, right? See how
Huh.
just like dirty and nasty it would be on like the freeway. Same thing
Mm-hmm.
with energy. Like imagine if like the social media, the Instagrams, the TikToks, the Facebooks, imagine if that like seeped out, and like if you were watching it, you could see the energy coming into you. It'd probably freak people out.
Yeah.
See how
Wow.
nasty and sticky it would be. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Oh man. Yeah, it's like a it's an essence of it's like a deprogramming from how we were programmed. We were connected at one point. All of us, I guess, we were all the source, and we grew to be out of this and live this kind of lie. And
mm,
the whole path is a path of deprogramming yourself first of all to that, and then knowing what to
yeah,
program yourself. So first of all, you got to realize what isn't to realize what is. You got to realize what
facts.
energies you don't want, and then realize what energies you do want. And
Mm,
that's the path. Like that's a everyday thing for me.
right.
It's an ever evolving practice to know what to take in. Like this whole I guess new paradigm that we're moving toward is it's still developing. Like there's definitely a lot of people on that track, but we're not quite there. And I think a world where we're all on that, if that is possible, which I do think it is, I think that's in
Yeah.
our destiny. It might not be in my lifetime, but it's in our destiny in the whole greater consciousness lifetime. Um, a world where we're all on that same page of being able to do that is a totally different, like I don't think I can even fathom what that looks like. We're just on we have probably different technology, different values,
Yeah.
different language. We probably look different.
Mm,
It's probably a different species, like a different being, I guess you could say. Like we become,
ooh,
like as we individually evolve, I think we're going to collectively evolve. And as we evolve
100%.
on the inside and we do our internal work, from there, the external is going to change. But right
Mm,
now, that deprogramming essence that took a hold of us at a young age, it's still very, very present. And
yeah.
this is right now, as we're speaking in the year of our Lord 2021. It's like the last ditch effort for this. Some people, maybe it's the reptilians, I don't know, but there's like this last ditch effort of the egoistic mind, of
Yeah.
the me selfishness mind, to keep a hold of our minds and stay on the hamster
Mm,
wheel that we've
yeah.
built up of just trying to live day to day and don't think you're anything special, don't think you have a purpose, just trying to survive.
Yeah.
That paradigm that's painted for us is right now is its last ditch effort to keep us locked into that. But
Yeah.
I think the
100%.
cat's out of the bag at this point, and it's just a matter of time before we are actually all on that wavelength and we become the being that we were supposed to be. I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe just time, maybe just a few more pandemics. I don't know, but there's already way too many people that are on that wavelength, spreading the energy, spreading the good vibes, I guess you could say, that are present here, that are living, for us to go back into that. Like, you can't, there's something changed, like something happened. I don't know what it is, but there's something that changed in my lifetime, it seems, where we went from living in, maybe not even my lifetime, I don't know, maybe since the 60s in the Western world, I don't know, but very recently we were living in this, like, this, it was almost like a play that we built up, like, you know, some kind of like false narrative that was just propagated throughout our entire lives, that still is, but now we've woken up to that fact.
And I think that's the thing right there is, you know, there's everything is grace. And I think that's one of the things that when we get tapped in, it's that shift from life is doing things to me that into like life is doing things for me, like life is providing these different things. And I think that's where, you know, that fundamental kind of like split happened was really within this past little bit with like the coronavirus stuff and the lockdowns, where those that really got a chance to have the time and were curious and just never had a second to breathe, so to speak, then they really took levels, like giant leaps and bounds forward in terms of like a leveling up type of process, right? And it's the exact opposite with some people where it didn't resonate with them and they just went back even heavier into like vices and indulgences and just kept the cycles going. And I've seen a distinct group of, you know, that separation of those who are really in alignment with, you know, their inner truth and looking for truth in that search versus those that think they know everything and they're comfortable and content. So, you know, I think it comes back to the sense of what happens in our lives. Most part, there's a catalyst that causes something to really click, you know, and conflict is, and you know, the chaos is what really causes us to grow in a lot of different ways, because it's the unknown. That's really it. That's the properties of it. But it's that light of our own spirit that allows those who are curious to really utilize it and use that experience as a lesson to learn, okay, how could things have been different? When you have that introspective look, that's what changes you into this, I don't know, spiritual being, because you're just using it for your own self-understanding and self-awareness, which leads to your self-mastery, which leads to self-love fully, like in its purest expression. I think that's the fascinating part of where we're at right now, is that I do agree with you. I think we're at that point where it's like, nah, this stuff's breaking apart, and it's pretty apparent, you know, when you look at different, I really look at the TV ratings and things like that, where you look at certain shows and sporting events and even like musicians and entertainers, like all their numbers are down super low. Record beyond belief. And okay, so you're telling me when everyone's at home, or a good majority of people are at home, people are choosing not to watch this stuff now? That's different. That hits different. So like, I'm always incredibly hopeful and know that like there's a lot more people that are waking up. I just feel like, you know, an immense amount of gratitude for being on this journey so long, that I feel like that's kind of the role of like people like you and myself, is these individuals who have awakened to the lack of the individual, you know, and just tapped into the sense of knowing of what is and what is not, because you've gone through that search of deduction, and it carries us to this point now where we're able to kind of lead by example, because I firmly don't think that anyone should be leading by my word. I think that's ending. I think that whole like, oh, the whole guru idolization, you know, which is paradoxical, because that's like my work, is I help people heal, but I help people heal themselves. Like I just hold the space and kind of point them in the direction. Like I don't say like, you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. Like that's just ignorance. And that's what I feel like is breaking down is in our society, is this kind of childlike authoritarian like idolization. And again, it's just like we're taking back our free will. So I'm right there with you, dude. Like I have no idea what a society based on that is going to look like, but I have a feeling it's gonna be really dope.
It's gonna be heaven on earth. That's what we're here to create. We're here to create the realm that we have in our imagination. We all have that imagination of what heaven is. Well, we're here to create that. I'm here to tell everybody that's what we're here to do. That's what a human being is. But we have to go through the struggle first, I guess, to realize we have to realize what isn't bliss in order to realize what
Mm,
is bliss. Because how would we
boom.
create a society of bliss and heaven and harmony and, beautiful rainbows and butterflies? How would we create that world if we didn't know darkness and suffering
Yeah.
and all the negative, quote unquote, negative aspects? That's kind of what we're living through right now. But we're here to create the other side of that polarity, I think, personally. Um,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't know.
100%, dude. I mean, it
I
comes
think
back
we
to
are.
that point of like the children, like, you're in that state of adoration and you're tapped into source, and you go into like the teenage years where it's like the rebellious phase. I feel like we're ending that phase. We're no
Mm-hmm.
longer the rebels, but there's also that teenage dependence. We're now at that point where we're transitioning into like adulthood as a species, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like a earth civilization that we're finally recognizing, like those of us that chose to look within and carried out
Mm-hmm.
that search, you could say. um we're at that point now where it's like, no, like that's not how life is, that's not what it's about. And then from there it's like we're creating different things. So it's funny, I hosted this event called Community Through Unity, and it was at a park, like local, super close near me. But it was like you have the lake, you got the mountains in the background, and all it was yoga followed by meditation followed by live music.
That's awesome. Sounds like a good
And it
time.
was and it was, man. And the people that it attracted and those that were really there, like the having an event, I would say, built upon intention of love, of
Wow.
peace, of joy, of building community. It was one
Mm-hmm.
of those things where it was a really powerful experience, because there's a few different just randos that were just walking through the park and just posted up because they're like, oh, live music, this is dope. Oh, yoga, oh, meditation, this is sick. And there was one mom who was like almost in tears because she was like, I just want to thank you. This validated everything I've been doing as a mother for my child, because her
Wow.
kid was vibing. He loved it. He was all about it.
That's
And
awesome, dude.
but that's the kind of taste that I think is like what holds for the future, is that there was nothing stopping us. Like, had a generator, had a PA system, had a bunch of musicians. What could go wrong? Nothing. And it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
it was all like really intention based music, like a lot of jazz, but just like even like the acoustic artists, just like consciously aware musicians that
Mm-hmm.
weren't just being cheesy and talking about source and the creator, like all that different type of stuff, but we're actually talking about the human experience from that deeper level of
Mm-hmm.
perspective. And man, I gotta say, it was a really magical time. Like, I just can't express it. It was one of those moments where when you see people just going for, walks with their dog, and they just lay down for hours just to listen and hang out, and they talk to you and like almost teary-eyed, just being like, thank you so much, like this was such a treat. Like, that's the stuff that I feel like we're tapping back into. That, imagine if we just did that all over. Doesn't matter, it's just all about everyone getting together that's tapped in. Like, so let's get a bunch of other tapped in people together. Let's literally create a space of harmony through our meditation and our intention, and then let's just jam out.
Yeah.
Like, it was
Mm-hmm.
dope, dude. It was dope. So for me, like, what you're talking about, I was just like, yeah, I think that's what's to come from this newer, developed, more conscious living and way of
Yeah.
life. Is it's a culture based on, well, it just changes the definition of culture. It's a culture based on creativity and camaraderie
And healing.
and, yeah, healing and community. It's
Mm-hmm.
not based on dog eat dog, idolization, lust, which is pretty
Mm-hmm.
much like fear. Like, that's pretty much
Yeah.
the four pillars of the modern day BS. Like,
Yeah, that's really interesting, man. A culture that's, I mean, yeah, you created like a healing space there, pretty much. You
yeah,
know, yoga,
and
meditation, and good music. That's good energy. Like that is what is this world is going to be encompass more of is creating space for us to ultimately heal, and collectively, yeah, it's going to be just one, hopefully, a culture where we we it's a giant space like you created, like on earth. Like earth is the space of healing here.
yeah,
And I don't know if there ever will be a time where we're done healing, like where we get to that point, right? I think forever as we're human, we have to be tapped into those certain kind of I guess rituals, you could say. Like I think just
yeah,
as long as we're human, we have to surround ourselves with good music, good people, especially yoga, meditation,
Yeah.
exercise. Like that's something we can't neglect. That's literally part of our being. We're
Mm.
neglecting
Mm.
parts of our being when you don't do that. Like
Yeah.
that tapping into the source, you could say, or this way of living, this new way of living. It's actually not new. That's just how we're actually supposed to live as a human being. Like I think naturally, yeah, you're supposed to do a little bit of stretching, maybe a little bit of running. You're supposed to meditate a little bit.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with good music and good people. Like that is just kind of literally part of ourself, part of what it means to be a human being that we're not doing. Like it's not just like an activity that you do for fun. It's not just something that you know, it's a hobby or something. It's like, no, those aspects, like, you know, like I talked about, good music, exercise, yoga, meditation, just getting in the sun. All of these things are part of us. Like that's how we're supposed to live and be healthy as a human being. But our culture doesn't really promote that exactly. It's not really attuned to that. So it's not like we're creating something new. We're like we said, we're tapping into something that was always there. It's been there forever. It's the vibe that has always been there. So it's not like, you know, it's not like we're egoistically saying that we're creating this new world, you know, like follow us, like you said. It's not like that. It's like you're leading by example, you're living by example, doing this, creating space for other people to then join you, you know, to join you. And and we all tap in together. It's not like I'm tapping in, follow me, look at me, look how important I am, and look at the things that I have to say. It's like, nah, man. When this whole idea of being able to tap into source, pretty much the entire conversation we've had, is it's not like, look at me, I'm that cool, like I can do all this. It's like, nah, man, we can all do this. Let's all do this together. Like I'm not any more important than you are. We're all these humans with all, I think we all have the same abilities to do this.
Yeah.
So
infinite
like
potential too.
Yeah, it's not, it's the only, but the thing is, it's like the only way that you can do it is you do it yourself, and hopefully other people catch the vibe. You can't tell anybody, like as much as like we're talking about this now, like I could preach all day long about being able to, you should probably do these things. Like maybe you should adopt a meditation practice. Maybe you should do yoga. Maybe you should stop listening to Young Thug. I like Young Thug, but maybe you should just maybe tone it down a little bit, or, you know, stuff like that. Become aware of what he's saying sometimes, you know. I like his music, but, you know, just become aware of the energies that you're putting into your body. And I do that. Hopefully other people can also do that, but what I'm saying is, like, you can't just say it. Like being able to have the ability to tap in, this quote unquote tapping into source, like we've been talking about, it's like you can only figure it out yourself, man. Unfortunately, like we all have to do it together, but we all have to do it together in our own way, if that makes sense. And
100%
usually, like we said, it takes some kind of catalyst. I'm always interested in some people's wake-up call, quite literally. And it has to usually do with ego death, like some kind of something to just say, whoa, that story, that's not the way. Like that way that I've been living is an absolute lie. And it's either through some kind of traumatic event, like a loss, you know, some kind of injury, emotional, physical loss, psychedelic experience, a lot of meditation. Like there's other ways to go about this, whether it's on our own accord or not, but it usually takes something. And it's like I said, it's not a simple listen to a podcast and that's it. It takes something in your own personal life to be able to see the lie in the facade that we've been living under. And then from there, you can see the light. And then once you catch a glimpse of the light, it never leaves you. It's liberation. It is quite literally liberation. And
then you just feed the flame.
And you feed the flame, man. It's a self-healing. It's a self-healing event that we all have to go through, or we all will go through. I think inevitably we all will go through.
Well, I mean, you either do it consciously in the waking state, or the body drops away and you figure it out. And
Yeah.
I'm sure it's pretty fucking terrifying if you when you pass and move on and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm sure.
Well,
I mean,
that's a
I've
huge
had
aspect of it, dude. Is recognizing your death, recognizing that your
Ooh,
inevitable perishment in this body, and
yeah,
usually that's kind of what these these catalyst events lead to, is
yeah,
recognizing in one way or the other that the story you built up thinking that you're going to live forever and all the people in your life are going to live forever,
it's
that
gone.
story, it's gone. It's, yeah, it
Like,
doesn't. And then you realize like, oh shit, I gotta live a little bit differently. It has to.
yeah,
That's the whole rebirth process that,
mm.
these religions and that guy Jesus kind of talked about. Is it's not like literally, it's like we're all Jesus. We all
Yeah,
have that Christ consciousness within us
facts,
to
facts.
be able to, I guess, kill ourselves in a way, or sacrifice ourselves, I guess you could say.
Ooh,
Sacrifice the story of the
how
ego.
about surrender?
Yeah.
Because it's
Surrender.
that
Mm-hmm.
love. It's the love to let go.
The love to let go. Wow.
I
You
try to
let
look at
go of the
everything in
story.
love. Yeah, I try to look at everything under that lens of love, where it's because I don't know, like the things that, because again, like I like what you said in the sense of, we're each expressing our own thing. Like we're each our own unique window of awareness, right? We're each our
Mm-hmm.
own one unique expression of the one. Yet, because of that, that's the gift that we receive just by being, is that there's only one of us, there's only one of me, there's only one of you, there's no duplicates.
Yeah.
In truth, there's you're your own essence, I'm my own essence, but we all have that shared source knowing, that same ground of being.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're able to really look at that and come to understand that it's not what we received in life, it's what was always present, that's that shift of being able to let go even more. And I think
Mm.
that's the, when, and again, when it comes back to looking at everything through love, like I even used like the main modality of the ego. What does the ego usually do? Separation, right? So we have to love ourselves enough to separate from this concept of separation, to entertain intimacy, to entertain oneness, connectedness, and just see what it's like. And then it's once you start getting those taste of just like the nectar that is life and experience, that taste never leaves your mouth. You always want that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing here is the concept of surrender. Like look at how many things physically, right? If you have a hot pan, your knee-jerk reaction is to let go. You cut yourself, your knee-jerk reaction is to just kind of like drop everything, you know. Yet with the mind, with the emotions, with the internal sensations, when we think that it's identified, like every thought and emotion sensation is identified as us, we don't let it go. So
Mm.
you have to separate yourself from that even identification, right? And then once you do that, it's easy to let stuff go. When you see that it's like, oh no, that sounds more like my parents. That sounds more like my uncle, my aunt, my brothers, that was that's my sister in there, like, no, that emotion isn't me. That's someone else's projection. Like when
Mm.
you start to see that, then it's so trippy though. Like you start to separate yourself from things. And then right there in the separation, life just fills the void of in that gap with the truth, with just like the oneness. And then
Yeah.
you're just like, oh my gosh, this is so many layers. Like, but again, like I'm sure it sounds absolutely insane to people that aren't aligned with this or aren't getting tapped into, but no matter who's listening, something's going to resonate with them. And
Yeah.
in all honesty, you have to be deemed crazy in our world to look into spirituality, because again, you're going against the grain. You're going against
Mm-hmm.
mass conformity. You're going against mass herd mentality and like, proper term sheeple, but like you're going against that herd consciousness into the pure consciousness. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, like, but that journey again comes through love as I see it. It's all just different forms of love. It takes fierce love to be disciplined, to resist temptation, that you love something so strongly you're going to be like, no, I'm going to stay in my lane and do this. It
Mm.
takes that curiosity, that I guess you would say like the curious love, to keep peeling the layers and never assume that you made it. I think that's the biggest cul-de-sac that a lot of people get caught up in, is they have like a full-blown like awakening or something. They're like, oh, that's it, and then they go
Yeah.
right back to the vices, and then the ego
Mm-hmm.
starts to play with something even more powerful. And that's
Mm-hmm.
probably happened a lot more than people realize, in terms of some identity or some attachment dropping away by force, and then it just kind of getting hijacked again by the ego. Like, and the way I like to express that, if it's kind of confusing for people, is imagine like a marionette doll, right? You got a little puppet. That's the ego. That's like our egoic identity. Every time we have like one of those major like aha moments, we cut a thread, right? But still, there's 4 threads now. They're still carrying the same weight. So those
Mm-hmm.
old egoic attachments just get stronger and stronger. So it's like this process where you have to really let go of everything to receive everything.
Yeah.
And that right there, again, it comes back to that sense of what is death, what is the mortality. When you start to really peel back and I would just say, go to the uncomfortable waters. Like anything that makes you uncomfortable, you need to navigate, and come to see why it's making something within you resist it. And that's I don't know. I guess that's just like the true expression of love is, it doesn't matter what it is. It's going to be unconditional and persevere through anything. So yeah, it's a long way to go about that. But like, I vibe with you on that sense where we have to overcome that aspect of the initial fears of loss I mean, it's really just fear itself, right? You transmute it into
Mm-hmm.
love.
That's the opposite of love is fear.
Exactly. Because again, one's love open, fear closed off.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Love isn't, I guess, not really what they tell us it is in the movies.
Right.
I mean, you can't really explain it. What is love? It's not really. It's not really an explainable phenomenon, but it's a lot more than just lust. It's a lot more than just having sex. It's a lot more
Yeah.
than just physical attraction. It's a lot more than just
Oof. Yeah.
liking somebody. I mean, I'm still figuring that out, I guess, but it's a lot more. It's like a learning. It's like an energy of learning. Like it shows. It's a
Ooh.
force of like I guess if you want to talk about the universal love, like the love of the universe, the love of creation. It's not really like it's guiding your being in a way that is not necessarily going to always be aligned with your physical well-being, I guess you could say, or
Mm.
maybe the narrative. Like the love that we're talking about is a way that's only going to propel you through through these maybe trials and tribulations, or maybe just
Mm.
confronting certain skeletons in our closet, through becoming aware of the puppet strings one at a time, and cutting them and breaking them off. It's might not exactly be the most easygoing ride. It might not be fun per se. Um, it's kind of like it's guiding your being toward liberation, whether you like it or not. And the more you
Yeah.
resist, the more you're going to suffer. Or at
Ooh.
least, yeah,
Mm. Mm.
yeah, the
Yeah.
more you're going to at least see your suffering in a different light. Because we're all like,
Yeah.
we're all going through shit. We're all gonna like confront our own deaths one day or another, right?
Yeah.
And if you do that, I guess consciously, if you consciously induce, sounds bad, but if you consciously induce certain rebirth experiences on yourself, it's a little easier to go through, I guess,
Yeah.
later in life. And
Ooh.
if you do that, like in terms of pain as well, it's the same thing. Like doing a really intense yoga class,
Yeah.
you're able to handle it better, and that's kind of, I think, a big essence of cutting the puppet strings is cutting your attachments
Yeah.
here. Like that's literally
Yeah.
like in the metaphor of, I really like that idea, like with the puppet. It's like cutting your
Thanks, man.
attachments to the controller. You know what I mean? But let's say you
Yeah.
cut
Yeah.
all the strings, then you're free to talk about, you don't have any control. You're the sovereign being.
Yeah.
So cutting the strings is like cutting our attachments to, I guess, not thinking for ourselves, like something else controlling our
Yeah.
body, kind
Just
of like tied to
free.
our,
Yeah. Giving away our free will,
yeah.
in whatever way, shape, or form that it comes by, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where it comes back into the sense of, we are conditioned to consume on all levels, physically, energetically, spiritually, or lack thereof, and it's a concept that we have to really come to recognize, because you have to go beyond concepts to get it.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the funny part about all this is like, and I really like what you said. It was so beautiful. It got me like, just, it hit so hard home when it was the sense of, um, when you have to let go in order to transform and transcend. It's this inner looking that is literally just you, yourself, and I. And it comes to everyone's own search to actually do it themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
when you go through that process of constant renewal and rebirth, those intentional efforts to really peel the layers, I feel like that is the way to have a seamless transition and have a peaceful passing in this world,
Yeah.
is that you're so comfortable with the letting go, with the surrender, that you fully embrace living.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like we can get to that point of like tensionless states of just being tapped into the flow until we go through those points of complete surrender to just the now, and just
Mm-hmm.
allow. And the more we do it, the easier that gets. And then it's like any other muscle, as I see it, like, or like a channel of a river, right? The more the water runs down, it's just going to etch deeper and deeper and deeper until sooner or later it's not going to flow downstream. It's just going to cut this newer path. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something that, like, I really like that, because it's the truth. It's, I mean, it's, when I say anything is like a truth with the capital T, it's just like the more you let go of, the easier it gets to let go. And then you're just left with the pureness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then,
Surrendering to the process.
yeah. And don't resist the resistances. I think I heard it from
Mm.
Adyashanti, but it was one of those like statements and phrases that just like caught my attention. Play it back, listen to it a few times. It's like, don't resist the resistance, huh? So
Mm.
anytime that I would, in a meditation where something would come up, I'd fully give it the space to be. It wasn't like trying to silence it or look away or focus on the silence. It was just like, what is life trying to present me?
Yeah.
And once that type of switch, I think, arose within me, it just became that much more clear that the universe and life is always speaking to us in
Mm-hmm.
ways we're not fully aware of. Like, that's what I see the ego is, like almost this egoic pain body where it acts up internally with all these different, thoughts or emotions, because it's that cry for help, like a little kid. Like, having teaching experience is probably one of the most profound experiences in my life, like 10 years worth of just like literally raising children and teaching kids, and and being a mentor, and just all those different types of like counselor, camp counselor, teacher roles. Is you really start to see how early a lot of these things set, and then you start to see how they manifest when you're older. And there's literally no difference. It's just what you're exposed to is different. Your abilities are different because you're bigger, but it's the same hurt as you see from children.
Mm.
And that's why I think it's really powerful when, transcending concepts of ego death, because in truth, it's just a thought believed in. We talk
Yeah.
about, like, full circle, the power of belief, like believing that we are this person, believing that we are this character. It's like, I think I'm just kind of like a cutthroat objective, like a person in terms of how I see things, where it's like, okay, well, I ask very straightforward questions when I was in that process. It's just like, okay, well, who was I before I was named? And then my mind just went silent, because it was just like, well, shit, he's got us. Like, he's just,
He's
it
got
was,
us.
you're like,
That's funny.
the light turns on, the cockroaches scatter. But it was just like, okay, well, clearly I was myself before I even knew I was a name. And I just remember, like, even my dog before he passed away, like, I remember those times when he didn't know his name. It was
Hmm.
like Strider, and he would just do his own thing. And then the moment it clicked, he was like, oh, that's me. And then
Mm.
from there, I was just like, oh, snap. Is that when the egoic identity really gets solidified? Is that the first thread? Is that the first anchor? Oh, this thing they keep calling me, that's that? Oh, okay. So it's like, but I think it's funny though, I want to bring it back to like the marionette aspect, like the little puppet doll, because I feel like over time, and I don't know if this is in your experience, where as more of those threads that would pull at the heartstrings to kind of get you back in those ruts or back in that cycle, the more of those that were cut, the faster other ones started to fall naturally,
Mm-hmm.
because it's almost like it can't hold the weight, and it was just like
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then that's the thing. It's like but I like the idea of don't resist the resistances.
yeah,
Um, and then once you start to realize the resistances, you can almost go into the resistances and break them yourself. So the first step is, yes,
yeah,
becoming aware of this whole thing that's going on, the healing process that's going on, and how we heal. It's you realize, like, don't resist, but also you can consciously go into the things that you thought were going to kill you, you thought were going to cause you
Ooh.
harm, and then you come out the other side. You're like, huh, I'm still here. That's huge. And then once you can consciously do that and go through that rebirth experience,
Yeah.
that's a superpower. Then you can grow to be the being that you want to be, because that's the process. Is you go and you learn that these things aren't going to kill you. Not
Yeah.
even death is going to kill you. That's the ultimate one. So once you get to that, you can conquer anything in this life, because
Right.
if death can't kill you, then you can conquer anything that you thought was going to kill you, like any of your fears, insecurities, whatever. The list goes on. You can consciously go into those things, smash them down in your head, in your egoistic mind, and then you grow as a being. That's the whole process, man. It's a
Ooh.
beautiful thing. And it is like, it's a superpower to be able to
Yeah.
do that and do it regularly and effectively. That's yoga, essentially. That's the being a yogi, is being able to
Yeah.
know your being and being able to repair your being. That's being the shaman, some may say.
Yeah.
Knowing how to heal. And like I said, it's not always pretty. It's not always going to be fun. You're not always going to have some kind of sensual pleasure from it. If anything, it might be the opposite of pleasure. It might be a little displeasure. But when you realize that it's not all about pleasure, that's how you truly are able to grow as a human being. And it's a beautiful thing, man. It really is. So it's almost like a sense of invincibility, bro. Like, what can stop me?
Mm.
Like, nothing can stop me. Like, it's like you're teaching your body and your brain, your spirit, to be to have like the shield of armor, to be able to like be resistant to
Mm.
all these things that you thought were going to cause you harm, or thought were important, and they're really not.
Mm. Mm.
You know what I mean?
Beautiful.
It's a special. It's like being a Jedi. It's like being able
Yeah.
to get these special abilities that you didn't even know were possible, CDs, like we talked about, and then you flourish. But it's like,
Mm.
it starts with, it's not like I'm able to like levitate objects or anything like that in terms of the
Yeah.
special power.
Yet.
Yet. Not yet. I'm still young. But it's being able to create the right practices for yourself, being able to create the right rituals, being able to create the right habits for your being. And it's a
Mm.
slow process, but if you can do that and create the right rituals, practice, habits, create the right energetic diet for yourself, then yes, you can truly learn to love this entire experience for everything that it is.
Everything.
Everything, the ugly, the dark,
Yeah.
dying,
Right.
everything that you think is gross and like you shouldn't embrace, is actually part of the journey. It's part of this whole process. And the more you go into that, the stuff that you're not supposed to, I guess, embrace, that you don't, that people kind of taboo, once you can kind of go into the taboo and realize it's not really taboo, then you can do whatever you want. You can think however you want and flourish, essentially. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, 100%. And I think the coolest part about it though is the more you continue to align yourself with these universal truths or universal laws, whatever you want to call it, it completely takes another perspective, or it takes another note, or it completely transforms the way you interpret things. Like, everything is energy, the law of inertia. Like, when you can really transmute that habit, like, matter doesn't get destroyed, right? It just changes forms. I see the same things with our habits. When you create those practices, those rituals, it's that energetic shift, that reinvestment in something that's causing you to be propelled forward versus something that's taking you backwards,
Mm-hmm.
and or staying in the same cycle versus actually gaining some direction and momentum with life. And that's the most beautiful thing about it too, is because when we go through that peak resistance, we enter into like the ultimate, I don't know, it's hard to even put into words. It's like you
The
enter into
ultimate.
the, yeah, like, yeah, we'll leave it at that. You just you enter into that, because I'll put it this way. So like, I think it was the last time that we talked, I actually ended up getting separated and divorced like within a week from the last time we talked. And it was like
Damn.
one of these things that had been building for a little bit, like
Is
what
it
we talked
something
about.
that I said?
No, no, it was one of those things. It was just one of those timing things where it was like, it was actually, I was very grateful for our talk last time, because it was able to like, I meditated before it because of like some stuff that happened in the morning. And then it brought me back to this point of just like, this is like what I want to continue to align myself with. Like these
Mm-hmm.
conversations are effortless, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and everything that was happening in that relationship. It's what we talked about earlier, like the importance of surrounding yourself with people who are aligned with these truths when you awaken to them, like how the energies change, the the draining effect, just the always dealing with that someone is collateral damage, and you may be tapped in. Like I consider myself pretty tapped in, but like I was still taking on those energies, and the moment they were gone, it was just like, oh, you know, clean house in that sense. But
Mm-hmm.
it was really fascinating because that was one of my last, I feel, goals or obstacles that I set out for this life, was really from the most intense level of just like decade plus into like an investment in terms of a relationship, like a connection, you know, the planned futures, all these different things, and to really look within my heart and be like, does this resonate with my spirit? Like 100%, am I all in, or is my gut saying no? And
Mm-hmm.
like being that tapped in and attuned and self-aware, it was enabling me to kind of overcome all of the fears and ego of the mind. And I live in a state where it's pretty quiet up there. It's usually just music, if anything, like instrumental types of stuff. But like
Mm-hmm.
it got to this point where the ego was trying to really get chattery and like really get aggressive about it. And that's what made me look at it even more. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing, is when you get to this point of like, when you continue just to embrace the process of change and transformation and just this human experience, and you see things as grace, you start to see the signs of, okay, what's the cry for help? Why should I navigate this? What am I supposed to question here to liberate myself from?
Mm-hmm.
And I swear, yo, the moment it happened, it was just, and I just like made the decision and fully committed to it. Silent mind, just completely back under, you know, because again, it's always going to try to, I don't tell people like, you know, ego, I don't usually like the term ego death, because it doesn't really go away. Like your mind's always going to try to bait you, because it's just it's our antagonist. It's trying to challenge our dedication to the truth.
That's
And
good.
so it's always going to play with us if we're like, if we give it the opportunity, right? So it's this point where when we look at it, and I was looking at my own experience, I was just like, okay, well, I overcame this, like that stuff went away. Well, what do I really want now? And just the manifestation that just started happening, like we start tapping, like I felt like another layer of life just opened up. And it was just like the trippiest thing. Cause I was just like, oh, everything's grace, you know, like whatever it is. And
Yeah.
because of that, though, like so many different connections from professionally to personally, like all these different things started to open up. And I've just been looking at it more and more like with just such a namor for life. Cause it's just like, man, this great mystery just gets more and more dope, like the deeper you go. And again, it comes back to that step of like, the more you let go of, the more you receive. Because
Mm.
I think that's the thing, though, is like you talk about, and you said it earlier, it was like you can do yoga, like people, it's like you can do yoga for fun, you can do this stuff for fun, but like, and just because it's like a fad and you want to get in health, like in shape and all these other things, but until you actually really understand the cause of it and the effect of it fully, and you come to understand it, and through the practice you build your understanding of what it really does for your spirit,
Yeah.
there's a disconnect from everything that we do. And until we
Mm-hmm.
live with that kind of intention, I feel like that's what kind of gets lost in the sauce, is that we're giving our free will away to someone else to be
Mm.
used for whatever purpose theirs is. But anything in this life can be seen as a gracious gift. Anything in this life can be utilized as a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And in truth, I see it as, you know, suffering is the fuel juice for spiritual development. Like
Yeah.
until we get to the point where we no longer need to suffer through lessons. Then you learn through love, then you learn through new experiences, then you learn through just your own manifestations. And life is always trying to just throw that in our lap, but usually we resist it. And then,
Mm-hmm.
well, I missed it. Come back around next summer, come back around next winter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, 2 weeks, another day for some people. It's just that those constant cycles that like life is always trying to like shake us up. And the best way to look at it is probably like a gas stove, right? You're holding your hand above a flame. Like life will be like, oh, if they're conscious and they really do love truth, like they'll feel the flame underneath their hand, they'll move the hand.
Mm-hmm.
And until we really get uncomfortable with it, that heat is just going to get stronger and stronger. That flame's going to get closer and closer and more powerful. And then only then do we want to pull it back. But how
Mm-hmm.
many people put themselves through such pain and unnecessary drama and chaos before they really want to take the hand back?
Mm.
And that's what I feel like is, once you get those tastes for the divine within and around, that is, there's no looking back. And I definitely didn't know that part when I first started this whole like journey, because mine was really starting from just like running away from like I just wanted truth, and I knew I was fed up with what I currently had and knew that I
Mm-hmm.
knew nothing. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I gotta find something.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I think the ride is only as arduous as we make it. I think the biggest
Yeah.
thing about this talk thus far has really been your perspective, like the power of how you perceive yourself in the world and what you
Mm-hmm.
choose to really invest yourself.
It's all
Like,
viewpoint.
yeah, transcend belief and enter into knowing. That's all I recommend.
Wow, that's good, man. Damn. That's good. Just this, yeah, it's this intuitive knowing.
Yeah, and you know it. You're like, that's the cheesy. It sounds so cheesy though. Like you know
Mm-hmm.
it when you know it. You only know what you know. Like, but when you get the taste, it hits different.
Yeah, that's true, man. And it's not about killing your ego, but it's cool that you just view it differently. You view what this thing is. It's almost like a separate being in you, like a separate entity that you got to work with,
I see it as the
right?
representation of the body.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I guess it's like, don't listen to that or know how to work with that a
Yeah.
little bit differently.
Because, well, and you want to know why? Because it was ages ago. It was just like I read Lao Tzu's The Art of War, and that's what sparked it. Years later on, I was just like, oh, the ego is the war
Mm,
mentality. It's the individual. It's the separate. You know, it's the separation. It's the fruit of knowledge. It's the Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden.
mm.
It is that
The temptation.
self-awareness. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's fully that one that is like the representative of the physical plane. It
Yeah.
is the one that has to be aware of otherness, because if you don't, you might get killed. It
Mm-hmm.
has to be in that fight or flight mode or just freeze, because it's trying to survive, you know? And that's the thing that I've probably learned is the most important throughout my own spiritual development, has been the importance of really focusing on those lower three chakras, is
Mm-hmm.
grounding those three centers. Because ascension without that, I mean, I've dealt with that shit. You just go out there and you can just be out there, and then you're just
Mm-hmm.
disconnected from things. But I don't see that's necessary, because, or I don't see it as worthwhile, because then you can't do the work. Like, I'm like yourself. I think we're here because we're here to change, to create the heaven on earth. And that's why I've never really been about, and I mean, it's always for everyone, you know, I'm not knocking anyone on this, but I've never seen the purpose of the monastery or the, you know, the pilgrimage out into the mountains and living out there. Because for me, like, yes, energy, you can do a lot of energy work up there, but it doesn't mean anything if it's not brought back, you know, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the assimilation process. We have to be able to figure out a world that we can create, that you can integrate spirit, conscious living, and this physical existence.
Yeah.
And I think that's like part of the search, where it's like, in terms of the ego aspect, because it is based in this separation and this war and all these things, like, you have to use its own tools against it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just that simple knowing of just like, okay, well, I can't war with it, because that's what it wants. It wants a
Yeah.
fight, it wants a challenge, but I don't have to engage. Just like any type of like conflict, like, it doesn't mean it needs to be combative.
Mm-hmm.
It's just clearly there's a tension arising within me, and I need to navigate it, like, yo, what's good, checking into
Mm-hmm.
myself. And then once I started respecting it in that sense and treating it with love, I started to see it more so like the hurt child it was, you know. And I think that's the effortless being, is like, when anyone's in the flow or just jamming or in the zone, like, you're playing. Like, life is a divine play, and life's supposed to be fun, you know. And that's the kind of natural childlike angelic, you know, nature of the body. But if we identify with it, then we're giving the reins over to the horse, and
Mm-hmm.
we're the rider of it. So it's like, it is that balance. But it came back to the concept of like, it's actually the basis of, you know, like the FSP logo is like, you know, you have this triangle, right? It's the fulcrum of the now. Like, you have, you know, you have the yin, the yang, and it's like, in terms of how they interact, you have the dualistic aspect of matter and spirit, but it's that simple observer of the I am presence, that ground of
Mm.
our being. That I am is like the individual that the seesaw goes on. And when you come to a balance, that harmonizing point, recognizing, okay, how do we, it's like the DNA, like the double helix dance. It's like, okay, how do we unify the spirit and the matter?
Exactly.
How do we harmonize what is truth in our heart to the truth of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And in truth, the ego loves everything that the spirit's about. It just thinks it's the spirit. So it's
Mm-hmm.
limited in its expression and understanding of things. But it's all about having those experiences of oneness, I feel like, because when you come to the ground of being, you realize what the fulcrum sits upon. And that's
Mm.
just like the essence of everything.
Yeah.
And when you harmonize with that, you recognize that it's like, oh, me trying to hurt someone else, me doing something to someone else is just me doing it to myself. But
Mm-hmm.
then that took it to the internal level of like, okay, well, the ego is me then. It's not something outside of me. It's something to work with. Like I need to be loving towards this. So that's like, I hope that helps in terms of like just the random tangent, but in terms of like the egoic understanding, I think there's a lot of people that remain trapped within the ego because they choose to seek battle with it. And that's a
Yeah.
never ending trap. It's going to always have something to battle with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In terms of the model of the chakras, it like quite literally does sit above the viewpoint that we're talking about literally does sit above those lower three chakras, which most of the world is working out of right now, which is all
Yeah.
about competition
Yeah.
and, power and survival and
Yeah.
reproduction and lust. Like those are kind of like the lower entities of the ego,
Yeah.
that's essentially what it is in terms of the model in our body. It's that. But yeah, you can work with your chakras a little bit and then transcend that and know that, like, yeah, it's all part of the package. All seven are part. It's part of this whole thing. You don't just shut
Yeah.
the three away and live in a monastery, live in la la land, right?
Yeah.
You work with the whole package, and then from there, that is, that's the whole basis of the Kundalini energy. And
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is most people are just they're living in three, right? So it's not that you just live in the ego. It's not that you just live in spirit. It's that you learn to, yes, balance the two. It's you learn to be able to recognize that those lower energies are present in us, but no, don't try to shoo them away. Know how to use them effectively to ground yourself and utilize all seven chakras of our being all at once, because it's a whole
Yeah.
system. If you disconnect yourself from your ego or try to shoo it away, it's actually going to make it stronger,
Yep. Yep.
so you have to
Facts.
learn to work with it. But you do that effectively by, I think, like strengthening your heart,
Yeah.
your throat, the third eye, seventh chakra. Those are all, you gain the CDs and abilities by strengthening those chakras to be able to better digest the lower chakras a little bit better. But most people don't even know that's a thing. We're not functioning on that. We're trapped in the lower chakras right now, just the lower essences. And once you can see life from that point of view and where our ego sits in terms of subtle energies in the body, in terms of emotional energy that are related to our points, literal, almost literal physical points in our body.
Yeah.
Until you can see that, it's hard to transcend that. You have to be able to recognize these different it's almost like different layers of reality, like different inputs.
Yeah.
You have our groundedness, which is kind of like a sense of safety, like that basic sense of safety that we feel.
Survival,
Yeah.
security, just like the
Mm-hmm.
Maslow's hierarchy type of stuff. Like
Yeah. That's basic. Like I think most people are trapped at that one.
that's honestly what I was gonna say. Like that was one of the things that I was thinking in terms of that when you're talking about the where people are at in the centers. I was like, I honestly feel like most people haven't gotten past the root. You're so
Yeah.
stuck in your
Root and sacral. Like we're all either just want to have sex or we're just feel unsafe, or both. And then the next one is solar plexus, which, what is that related to, dude? Is that like create power?
It's like the powerhouse. It's like the mount. I call it like the mountain of trust in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like that's the extra oomph of just rootedness. But it helps us manifest. But so the way I think about it in terms of this is like, so you have the root, people that are caught up in a lot of like the base fears of security and like safety. Then you have the sacral center. It's those that don't really accept themselves fully,
Mm-hmm.
which is super hard to do when you're idolizing everyone.
Yeah.
So it's like we could almost break down the chakras and like how you can clean out your system just by like how it impacts you, like in terms of the cultural aspect. And then the solar plexus is really a lot of forgiving yourself and coming to that trust and faith again, as I have experienced it, where it's learning
like
to,
you get that gut feeling. Is that where it comes from, you're saying?
well, my gut feeling comes from my sacral center. And I
Okay.
could feel it like coming up, but it works super close with the solar plexus, because the solar plexus is what gives us that like mountain of just power, where it's the immovable force. It just keeps us
Yeah, it's
really
like
like,
yeah, I know what you mean.
it's that
Mm-hmm.
knowing, but we can't really know it if we're always in doubt of ourselves. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I see, that's why I see like the love aspect of forgiving yourself is one of the hugest ones, because it's like everything that's happened has made you who you are. And then you can take that the next further. It's like, well, who are you though? But like, and then, we get to the heart, which is like, you have to learn to love others and just love, like forgive others, love yourself, love life, and know that you're okay. And I think
Yeah.
that's, a lot of people are more blocked in the back
That's kind
because
of where
that,
you figure out what you are, like that question of what are you, then you go more to the heart
yeah,
and you act
yeah.
out of the heart.
The who am I really steps in, because it's interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a point after this, because it's like, so then the throat is all about truth. It's like, are you being honest with yourself and others? Are you speaking it into existence? The third eye, I would see it as like, are you able to see from the, like, are you confused on the observer and the observed, or have you distinguished that? And if
Mm-hmm.
you think that everything within you is you, then you're kind of like, well, you're going to carry that on until you have like one of those awakening moments where life just forces you. Or you could be real about it and just look at it like, if someone has a baby and it's like one of your really good friends, and their baby is what your thought would be like, that's an ugly baby. You wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
say that to them. Like, we overlook all those types of subtleties, how much we ignore thought and dismiss thought, but certain
Mm-hmm.
ones we identify with entirely. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
just a logical illogical game. And then the crown is really just that, recognizing that there's more than just you, that you're connected to something else. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you may seem insignificant if the ego wants to hijack that, but there's a significance in every aspect of life. Everything's
Mm-hmm.
by design. And what's funny enough is I feel like we honestly awaken from the top down. And then it's
Mm.
like, once we, because I like to put it like this. So for me, I had like an awakening of the mind first. And then when my mind was gone, in that sense of like the thoughts weren't chattery, it was pretty chill and quiet. It was like, okay, well then who am I if I'm not my thoughts? Because clearly I'm not my thoughts. They're like, I'm still here and it's silent now. And it
Yeah.
was pretty trippy. And then the awakening in the heart happened, which allowed me to really connect with life again, where I was like, oh my gosh, like it's of the same, everything's the same essence. Like I feel myself in everything. And it's
Mm.
because it was like, oh, that's because everything is of the same essence.
Oh
Everything
yeah.
contains that spirit. And then for me, after that, I was like so lost, like, well, what the fuck? What's like, what is real? What is not? Like, all I know is what I've experienced. And I had to learn to be okay with that. And that's when like the awakening of the gut happened, where I just had this mountain of just like, whatever arises, it's okay. Because I
Mm.
now know that it's not me alone in the world, it's life. I am
Mm-hmm.
life itself. Like, I've never been alone. I've never been disconnected. It was all just a creation of my mind. And then from there, I actually kind of like worked on like the different chakras, I guess you would say. But like those are like the three that really like drove the point home in terms of recognitions. So, and I don't think I'm the only one in that sense, but it's with the other ones. That's why I actually made that comment of like the ascension without grounding. Because if you're not grounded and you're doing that stuff, then like you can still get caught up in like the sacral, the root, like those fear, the lust, the, even in the throat, just like the not fully living in your truth, I guess would be the
Mm-hmm.
more expression of it. But yeah, so that was in terms of the energetic aspects, it's really fascinating when we look at how much we can actually heal ourselves when we just ask ourselves certain questions that relate to different centers,
Yeah.
and different breath work and the different types of just states of just, whatever position it is, if it's an element, that coincides with the chakra, like there's so much or the colors, like there's so much that we can actually do consciously to heal ourselves, even if you're not spiritual about it. You could just approach it as 7 different categories to look at and be introspective about, and you're going to gain something from it. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the stuff where it's like, I hope that that's where healing transitions into in terms of
Mm-hmm.
the future, is that people start to, use a pendulum to see what chakras blocked, whatever it is, and then from there working through it, because it's been powerful to have like Kundalini experiences, but never having consciously sought out Kundalini experiences. I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
trippiest part, when you're just like, like sweating profusely, like the heart just like, yeah, like the fear of God moments, like that's a real thing that,
Yeah, those are real.
yeah, like,
Those are real. But it's
and
all worth it.
yeah, and you can't evoke them. I think that was the one thing where it was like, I remember like the first, I feel like I overcame that the third time, but it took like the first two. Oh, I felt like I was so close on the second one, and then just like attached myself to a thought, and then just like it all just went crazy from there. But I tried to evoke it and it would never come up. It was always just those random, just, oh, you're in this now, where it would just be like, yeah,
Through meditation.
Yeah. So, well, the second one was interesting because it was like a month and a half probably after the first experience I had, and I was just meditating one time, and then the thought came in, you're gonna die, and it was just like, the heart started to race. I thought my heart was gonna pound on my chest. I just started sweating profusely, and I was just meditating by myself in the middle of the day, like nothing, like it was nothing. And then afterwards, I was shook. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die, and it kind of caused a little bit of tension. And then the second time it happened, I was literally just watching a movie, and it was just like a character. Movie? I can't even remember. It was just like I was so lost in the moment where it was like the character died, and I was just thinking about like of death in that sense, where I was just like, oh, that was like, because it was really well acted, so it was just like an emotional kind of thing. And I was just like, the thought just came in again, just like, we're all gonna die. And then it just like, I was literally in the middle of the I guess you would say the middle of the movie, I almost said show, the eyes just closed, and it went right back into that state. And for me, it was the first time I had like a unconscious or unintentional like separation from the body. It was a brief second, and it just freaked me out, where it was just like, no, 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 and that's literally like what it felt like inside. And then by the time I had my third one, I had already experienced that kind of like awakening on the heart. And then that's what led me into actually the awakening of the gut, where it was just like so much faith, where I was just like, I know that what I am, although I don't fully understand it, goes beyond this body. And that thought just kind of kept me through it, where it's just like, there's no such thing as death if everything is of one essence and knowing. And then it was that's just like, one. And then it just kind of melted away into this like profound, just like trust. And ever since then, like, man, it's been such a cool dance with life, just seeing it for what it is. And I think that's something that is so unfortunate when we think about what life was before that, in truth, where so many people are caught up in uncertainty and doubt and fear and pain, really. There's a lot of suffering because we assume and expect so much, rather than just being willing to embrace what life provides us, but also being loving enough to ourselves and life to venture out and act. And that's its own thing right there. But I feel like for guys, it's different than women in the sense, like, I feel a lot, we can express this physiologically too, that in terms of women, their brains are wired more left, right hemisphere. Ours are wired as men, like ours are wired more front, back. And through stillness meditation, we gain the left, right connections. Women, through like the living meditation of like carrying out some like some type of act that they can just get lost in the flow, they wire their brains more front or more forward and back. So it's so interesting how it's like, it's still important to have both practices, obviously, but like to really initiate, I feel like to kick drive the process, like men have to really go deep into stillness and be able to get to that point so you can start to tap into the feminine energies within you, and then the process can really go. And then for women, it's awakening that masculine. It's like getting out of the introspective objective and really diving into the experiential, like the fiery, like, let's just go do it. And that's the coolest thing, because like when you look at how we all learn and how the energy systems work, like we could almost create a new system of just like healing and raising people into their full experience, where it's like you teach them all early on, so then you have this dope tool belt just to play with as you grow. Like, oh dude, like, there's so much that could be done in this world.
Different energy systems. I like how you said that. And it comes down to like different energy systems of being able to, once you realize the chakra system, being able to know what the chakras do, and then being able to almost manipulate, I don't know if you'll say manipulate the chakras, be able to work with the chakras a little bit better, know what's good for each thing. Like, it's like, it's definitely a skill to be able to like say, something going on my root chakra today. And then you take the steps to to live accordingly, to maybe balance it out a little bit. Maybe it's certain sounds, maybe it's certain meditation with crystals, maybe it's certain yoga poses,
Yeah. Right.
maybe it's certain foods that you can eat. But there's ways to
Yeah.
develop systems for yourself, even if we don't have it, in schools yet. But you can develop systems for yourself based upon the model of chakras to be able to manipulate, I guess, manipulate yourself and to be able
Mm.
to um, I guess transform the energies. And that's how we, like, once we,
Yeah.
we kind of started this whole thing off of, like, it's where our body's an input output machine, right? That's putting it very simply.
Yeah.
uh,
Right.
the input outputs are based upon, you can take it another layer further, upon different subtle energies that have almost like different categories based in our body, right? Different parts of our
Yeah.
being. And you can figure out how those categories work and know
Mm.
how to fine tune it, because it's not just as simple as meditating and being able to just sit still. It is, but it's also goes another layer further where, you know just meditation is becoming aware of those subtle energies, and then from
Yeah.
there you know how to take in the energies that are coming in, and then know what energies to take in, and then from there you develop a healthy line of energy in yourself through your chakras. But it's all
Mm.
based upon, I guess, certain how things vibrate, how things kind of like the frequency of certain things that we take in, whether it's,
Yeah.
like we said, food, people, sound, um, light, I guess you could say, like certain colors, like you said, crystals,
Yeah.
uh,
Smells even like.
smells. Once you can know that these things, those things have a certain vibrational frequency about them, right? You can tune those, use those certain frequencies to be able to tune yourself and tune your
Yeah.
different points of frequency in your body accordingly, and then literally use your body as like an instrument and tune your body how you want to tune it, like literally like an instrument, dude. It's pretty cool. But it's like
Yes.
it takes it, you have to know where these energies lie and which ones are good for each center, because I can almost feel some days when, like you said, when my heart is off a little bit, or like maybe my throat chakra's off, I can't express myself, or
Yeah.
um something where I don't feel grounded, like I'm feeling this, like a little my fear, I guess you could say, or just different elements I can
Yeah.
feel and take note
Doubt.
of.
Yeah.
Doubt. Yeah, I can
Uncertainty.
take
All of
note.
it.
I can take note of all of these things, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to edit that. I know that that's a thing. I'm going to recognize it. I'm not going to resist it, because that's what most people do. They would stop there, resist it, go on Netflix, right? Put
Yeah.
on something so they can just ignore that.
Mm.
That's not the way. The way is you
Facts.
recognize it, and you go into it and
Mm.
successfully be able to change that up, and then change your being, and then you are living in a more harmonious state of being. And yeah, the
Yeah.
biggest one is confronting, like, the energy of your self-fear and insecure that you're going to die.
Yeah.
But once
Like
you
that's
can
the last
fine tune
one.
that, that's like the big one. And once you can fine tune that, man, I don't know, you can fine tune anything. Like, would you say that's mostly associated with our crown chakra, like our connection to the divinity? Because once you can fine tune yourself
Mm.
to a sense of that you're connected, you're all connectedness to everything, to the divine, no matter what. Like, I know that I
Mm.
am a deathless being, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that associated with our crown, would you say, to be able to fine tune that? And then once you, like you said, the first step was you kind of like dying in a way. Like you said, oh shit, I'm gonna die. And then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
we're all gonna die. So I like the idea how you said that the seven chakras are like, I like to think of it from the bottom up, but when you think it from the top down, that makes a lot more sense. Like, you came to like the first thing, it's like, oh shit, like, I'm gonna die. But then you realize somehow through the connecting all of them, which lit up the seventh one, you're like, oh, I'm actually everything. Like,
Yeah.
I am this entire process that is a ever forever flow.
Mm.
And do you think that that was like the first, that you have to enable that, the first thing is being able to step on the path, is like confronting your death in a way, and then from there it's a lot easier to entertain, I guess, our subtle energies, to be able to change our subtle energies in our body, because it's almost like once you get over the big one, the big that you're gonna die someday, and then you can get over any other mini death you have in throughout your chakras, like throughout ways that you
Yeah.
see the world. Like no matter
Mm.
what, you can sacrifice how you feel, or like how you how am I putting this, dude? You know, are you following
I
me?
got, yeah, no, I totally got what you're saying. I totally
Okay,
get it because
it's
like,
like,
okay,
go
so I'll
ahead.
put it this way. So to answer the question is immediately, because like the moment you were talking about it was like the last, I think it was like the last two sentences. It came to me in the sense of from the top down, it's a form of death first. I think the understanding of the death gets more intense, or it changes a little bit as you work your way down, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it brings it back to what you're saying is like when we're kids, we're tapped into source. We come from source. Before we were named, we were already a being, we already had our window of awareness. So for me, I feel like the initial disconnect from the crown, right?
The source.
Yeah, exactly. The first disconnect from source is the moment you realize you know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I think that's truthfully what opened it up, because I couldn't get to the source if I keep this hat on that I know everything, because
Yeah.
it's just like anything in school. You can't teach someone anything who thinks they know everything. So I feel like that's where it probably came from first. And then from that point, it was like, well, what is truth? And then the whole deconditioning and detaching from the conditionings and separating yourself from, the thoughts and all these things, then it hits the crown. It lowered, I was always kind of like I was a chatty Cathy as a kid. So I was always pretty good at verbal and communication stuff. But like, I remember distinctly working through my throat in college, because I would always have throat pain. Like my throat would hurt a lot. And it came back from, I guess you would say, like speaking your truth. So it's like, so I kind of went about it in a little wonky way, but I think in terms of those main three that I was mentioning earlier, it's like you have to go from this point, you have to clear the ground first, right? You have to be like, I don't know shit. I have to figure out some truth, which
Yeah.
brings you to the layer of the mind and kind of the upper chakras, where it's like, okay, well, you have to determine what truth is. What is, and you learn that through deduction, like what you're not reveals what you are. So you're
Mm-hmm.
just peeling away the layers. And then from there, you get to this point where you're no longer the thoughts. You're not the observed anymore. So what is the observer? And that kind of like unlocks the next one, where you can drop into the heart, where it's like, okay, well, this is the true throne of the soul for the human as I see it, for our human experience. Like this is the meeting point. We connect the lower physical with the higher spiritual. And it is us. It's that fulcrum for the being.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that love of just the truth of looking to really determine who am I, now that you're no longer the thoughts and the identifications. Well, what am I without any of the identifications? What is this experience? What is life? And then that reveals to you the experience of the oneness, the pureness, the love, like the infinite that is you, me, everything. And then from there, it kind of is like a dipping of the toes in, just like, here's a taste. Like, it's okay. It gives you
Mm.
that reassurance for the lower centers, I feel, to really take in those next lookings of, well, shit, what am I beyond the body? Because it was only until that experience really that those fear of death moments started to come up, which
Yeah.
would always freak me out. And then from there, it was just working through the lower centers. And I feel like, in truth, I've just now really started to, like, this past probably like year and a half, 2 years, I've just really started to kind of like come into the mastering of grounding and living in that harmony of the physical. So I feel like that's what I'm saying. It's always a never ending process of learning and always readjusting, because there's different energies, different days of just, but it's that ability where once you're no longer identified with the vehicle, you can finally give it the right service. So
Mm.
it's like, I like how you said it in terms of like the tuning of the body. It's like once you kind of understand like the inner mechanics of it, you can realign it however you see fit for that moment. But the thing is, it's getting to that point of recognizing that we radiate everything. So it's getting your centers, getting yourself to the point of where you're okay with your beingness on all levels and waveforms and just like in frequencies, and that you're
Mm-hmm.
always in that process of tuning. Because just like a guitar, different, a breeze will make it out of tune, right? You're always having to go through this dynamic aspect of life, but you're no longer attached with it. You're no longer having these expectations. So in terms of the whole start of it, yeah, I think it starts with that clearing the ground, knowing that you know nothing, because only then can you actually learn something.
Yeah.
And then from there, it just is this continual unfoldment of just bringing you back into harmony with what is. Because again, that's where I feel like is the trippiest part is it was only until like the awakening in the gut that I feel like the lower centers, like my sacral center and my root chakra, started to actually like I listened to them. Like it was the first time I could actually hear my gut speak from my sacral center of just like, no,
Yeah.
yes. Let them like, oh, okay, that's a no. And I had to play with that. Like it took a little bit to experiment with it. Like I had to go through some things that I wasn't, for me, the way I interpret it, it's like, if it's not a full blown yes, it's a no. Like, and I had to experience that like partial intrigue. Let's try it. No, that wasn't it. That's not the yes, until I fully knew like what made my body excited. And then that's where we started getting into like the intangible sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, whatever senses, because I just expanded upon it. What if every chakra center gives us like a spiritual power? Because that's what my gut is, I feel like, because it's an ability of foresight for me to know that something energetically is like pulling me towards this versus not repelling me away.
Wow.
And then from grounding, that's what brought back, like, I guess you would say, like the kind of shamanistic cultures of just like, yeah, we are of earth. This body is from earth. It'll return to earth. It's not mine. And that's it's made another aspect of like the detachment process even more dope. But like, all I will really say from it is, the more we let go, the more we receive. And the thing that starts first is our misperceptions. So it has to come back to that point where it's like, we have to really recognize and accept. It's the hardest part is accepting that we know nothing, that like everything we taught was lies. Like, even if there was a little bit of truth, I was so uncertain at that point that I had to throw everything out. I think a lot of people have that saying, like, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. For me at that point, I was like, fuck the baby too. Like, I don't know anything. I know I know what I'm doing right now isn't it. So I can't trust anything that's coming from that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the switch where I feel like it really started to like pick up the pace. But yeah, like, it's interesting when you think about it, man, like just the way you expressed it too, in terms of addressing the different centers. Like, this is the type of stuff I see the future, like physical education, like PE classes teach, right? Like how to use your body, how to understand the body, even like from the physical component, like your body is a system of levers and pulleys. Internally, you have these different energy centers that resonate with different things. Like,
yeah, it's not dodgeball. Even though dodgeball was
running
fun.
a lap. Yeah, dodgeball is fun. I mean, I think like in team games and stuff, but like it should be play and education as one. Doing different games and exercises that help you awaken these chakras, help you unfold on these levels. Because like kids, I mean, could you just imagine like generations of kids just like being tapped in like this from an early age? But then again, who knows? Maybe we talk about like the divine timing of things. I think we're meant to all go through this process of chaos and crazy because we're not at a point as a whole collective where we appreciate what we are and what life is.
Yeah. Not
I
yet.
think that's just what we're returning to, is just that reverence and understanding of like, okay, this is it. This is it.
This is it. We're all it. That's crazy, man. That's awesome. That was great. Wow.
Oh, it's always a great time.
What?
Oh, it's always a great time. I just love the conversations we have. It's just like,
this is definitely a good time, dude. Wow. I don't know where to go from here. We're all it. Once you realize that we're all it, you think we can all get on that paradigm, knowing that we're all it. You're it. I'm it. We're all it. Reverence for this experience. That's a good way to put it. Because it's weird, man. Like, once you come to that conclusion, you realize how beautiful life is and the moment is and everything about it. And it's just like, it can bring you moments of complete ecstasy where you're crying, tears in your eyes from how beautiful this experience is. And those are beautiful moments. We're disconnected from that. Imagine, like, I think, like, it's weird. We're all in this, like, beautiful incarnation dream together. But there's some people that don't realize it's a dream. Like, they don't realize the beauty, the sanctity of this moment. And it pains me because I am those people. And we're together, like that, we're all in this together. We're all this giant consciousness together. So other people suffering is me suffering. Other people not seeing how beautiful this is also affecting me. It's we're all connected in this but there's this disconnection that pains me, man. It really does.
Yeah.
Like, I wish we could all be on that. And I think we are getting there, like slowly in the future, and it's going to be a totally different world. But we just have to go through, I guess, this rough patch a little bit, you know?
and and I think one of the things too is coming to accept that just as different cells within the body are recycled and restored with something else, I think that's one of the things that I've had to come to accept just with a lot of the happenings these past like year and a half plus has been that not everyone is intended to wake up, and being
Yeah, it's
okay with
heavy.
that. And
Yeah.
and I think that's probably the hardest one to like the hardest bullet to bite, right?
Mm,
Is that that's the true reverence and sanctity of namaste, right? Bowing to the divine within each being, just to know that some people, their sole objective in this life was not to wake up. Like
damn.
it was not on their radar. It was not something that they were here to do. It was something, like whether it be like a role to play in someone else's life, or there's someone, I can't remember, I heard it from I know who I heard it from. I don't remember what the person who they quoted was, but it's like everyone's here for a reason, season, or a lesson, or a season, a reason, or a lesson, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when you start to look at the aspects of and experientially knowing that you're beyond the body, and then you start to have, like, I don't know if you, I've had a memory, right? And I remember telling it to my parents as a little kid, and I just remember that look of kind of like fear and like confusion, because it was talking about like one of the movers when they were moving into like my like childhood house was named after one of my brothers, and they were like, you weren't born yet.
Mm,
So it's just like I already know, and I've had like some akashic readings and different past life type of weird experiences, and it's fascinating to know that we come into this life with certain objectives and goals, and it's almost like a little playbook strategy meeting where it's like, all right, I'm gonna be your kid, you're gonna be the parent, we're gonna go through this, I'm gonna have this opportunity, or it's gonna break me and I'm gonna go down this path, and it comes
mm,
back, because I've never been a big person that's just like, it's fate, it's drawn in line, and I still don't believe that. I think that there's a whole roadmap of different trajectories that it could go depending on where you're at and what it's necessary. But I think those that really set out to determine and awaken, they set out with intention. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why it's even more, I love how you said it, like the sanctity of the now, just being here right now. It's just like, it's such a sacred thing that people take for granted, because there is so much, there are so many, and there's just so much unknown in this world on the intangible aspect of it. To be here and to experience transformation and change, and to know that we set out these journeys and obstacles and tribulations for ourselves, it just adds another layer of just like that trust and faith in life, of what it presents you, is that, yeah, and then once you fully jump on board with life, it uplifts you, it doesn't break you anymore, but it's all about that game of how you see it. So it really is a beautiful thing. It's a trippy and heavy concept to think about, though. I've definitely been chewing and stewing on that one for like the past year. It's just like, oh wow, like these people that are choosing certain actions that can lose their lives or whatever it is, here, that they're going to go down that path of like maybe spiritual materialism, or they're going to go down their own growth, that they chose to do that too, and it has nothing to do with me. Because I guess it just comes back to the lessons and laws of the universe, where it's the law of free will is like the most important one.
mm-hmm.
So for me, I've never seen it as like it's written in stone, but you have a choice which road to take,
Yeah.
and you have a certain set of roads that you set out to do, or how I was expressed to it by an Akashic reader was setting out certain trees to climb.
Mm.
And once you get the view from the top, you climb back down, climb the next one. And I'm just grateful that I went through a lot of mine early on. Like I think
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that I've seen from a lot of people who are kind of tapped in, is that they transformed all of their suffering into strength. And
Mm-hmm.
that's been the coolest part of like the renewal and restoration. But not everyone has that, man. And
Yeah.
that was a soup. That's like, honestly, is probably like the toughest pill for me to swallow when I elected to get a divorce. It's just like, not everyone has it, I guess. And like having to
Yeah.
really accept that it's just like, okay, like this will never interest them. She will never be into that stuff. Like, it doesn't matter what I do. And I just hope that that experience of loss on the physical level led to an opportunity of like inner looking and inner awakening. That's all I
Mm.
hope for, and just wish you the best in your journey. But like,
Mm.
that is probably still the hardest thing to always kind of remember in the moment, that it's just like, yeah, they're choosing this is their choice. We have to let go of all judgment. I think that's the hardest part for people who are tapped in, is that like, you have to let go of all judgment. Everything is love. Everything is love, and everything is as it needs to be. Like, I can't control someone else. That's just a fact. Like,
Yeah.
they have to choose it. And I think that's where we've really seen that divergence this past year plus, of just like, you're either about it or you're not. And that line got super far. Like,
Seriously. Yeah, you're either about it or you're not. That's very true, dude. Wow. And it's
and
like,
that
I wish I could help people. I really do. Like, I wish
right.
I don't like, I'm not saying like I want to be the Messiah, but it's like, because it's like
Yeah.
I recognize that I'm I'm everybody. Like, I want everybody to, like, I just love people. It comes down to that. Like, if I truly love you, I want you to
100%.
be able to experience how I'm feeling. And how I'm feeling is, I think
Yeah.
life is beautiful. Every day I wake up, I think it's a gift. And
Yeah.
if everybody could be on that wavelength, that would be an amazing place. And I would want that for everybody. But I just, it's like a sense of not hopelessness, like almost like maybe hopelessness, worthlessness in a
Mm,
way where it's
yeah.
like, I can't help these people. I wish I could. There's nothing that I can do. And these people, I'm talking about these people. I'm saying like people in my life, like literally people in my life that I
Right.
can't have a 2 hour conversation like this with. They'd be like, dude, Gary, you gotta lay off the mushrooms, bro. But I'm like, no, you gotta understand. I've tried, and just doesn't, like, some things, some things just don't, they just don't resonate. Like, if you're not
Yeah.
literally resonating at that frequency, you won't be able to understand that frequency, and that
Right
pains me.
over.
It sucks,
Yeah.
man, because it's not like a sense of like pity. It's a sense of like, yo, like, let's do this together. You're my brother.
Yeah.
You're my sister.
Well,
Like, let's all, let's get it.
and you've been there before, and I think that's the part that gets it too, is like, because I don't see anyone not having utilized their sufferings, and waking up. I just don't think that's possible. I think you really have to embrace everything of your experience to go into these deeper realms of recognition. And that's why the compassionate bridge of love is so strong.
The
Is because it's like
compassionate bridge of love.
we know what it's like to feel so alone, to be so
Yeah.
hurt, to be so pain. And I'm right there with you, man. Like, nothing hurts more than seeing people you love continue that path of just, I don't even know what to call it. I mean, just continue that path,
Suffering.
like, yeah,
The path of
exactly. Continue,
suffering.
yeah, to
They're
continue the
digging
path
their
of
own
suffering.
grave. Like, they're doing it, like you
Exactly.
said. Like, you can heal yourself too, but you can also hurt yourself. Ultimately, it's up to us. And I hate to see it's like, people will say things to me where they complain about their life or certain things that happen, and like, I don't want to say like, well, it's because you didn't do X, Y, or Z. You can't just say that.
Yeah,
It does. It's not that simple. Like, they have to realize that in their own accord. And the only thing we can do, like we said before, is lead by example. And if people want to listen and they want to see what you're doing with your life and like, oh, that's cool, and learn from you, that's the best you can do. Like, there's no way that, like, you can't say something
yeah.
to somebody. It's not that simple, man. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Because
And
yeah, once you get to that point, when you realize, for me at least, I realize I am everybody, and I am everything connected to everybody at once. I want it, I think we all go through that, probably, like a certain sense of like, oh, then I'm gonna save everybody. I'll
yeah,
be the guy, but you
it's
can't, man.
natural.
It's not
Yeah.
like that. You can only save yourself. You
Well, and
know.
I think that's the kind of interesting aspect of that too, where it's, I think everyone, I feel, at least I know, it sounds like you have it. I know I have, in terms of, when you tap into it, you have that instant yearning to want to help others, because you
Hmm.
finally see like the communal aspect, the oneness aspect, the interconnectedness. And because there is that recognition where it's like, your pain hurts all, it's like, I really do. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people get caught up in, is they think that people are being like pretentious or just super cheesy or stereotypical. But it's like, no, like, when you fully awaken to the fact that it is all of the same essence, like, we are all in the womb of the creator, as I see it, there's no separation anymore. It's just intimacy, it's just interconnectedness. And because of that, we're only as strong as the weakest link, so to speak.
Hmm.
And that's the stuff that really is always, honestly, it used to really freak me out, probably like before, like right at the peak of the pandemic. I was like, oh gosh, if not everyone gets it, are we all done? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I've come to recognize that aspect of, the sanctity of each being, is that we have our free will. and it's a choice. And that's the real reason why I always, like even yourself, it's just like, I always give reverence to those who have taken that inner looking, because it takes a lot of courage that a lot of people just don't have. But that's why I think, all the light workers, the healers, those who are tapped in, source knowers, we're the spiritual Johnny Appleseeds and Janes. We're just the ones that are just meant to just start, throwing the seeds out just by our being, dancing our dance, and just showing others that you can have fun and let go. And hopefully that is just the energy it takes, because again, it spreads like wildfire. You smile at someone, they smile back. Like, you know what I mean?
It's all good
like,
vibes, man. Just trying to spread the good vibes.
And when you
It's like,
do
it's
that,
not about living in a way where I want people to think I'm cool or look at me, look what I'm doing. It's like, yeah, I guess look at me, but also like look at yourself. Look
Right?
at how
That's
I'm
the
living, I
difference.
guess, but then take that and transfer it into how you're living. Like, I don't care what you think of me. I want you to use me as like I guess like a symbol for your own good.
Well,
It's not like it's not about, it's like transcending the ego. You're still using the ego, still knowing that we have it and utilizing it, but utilizing it for other people to realize that they're not just the ego, that they can also transcend the ego,
Well, that's the interesting aspect when you talk about, like, if you want to go into like the deep of it, where you think about like, okay, so we're each cells of the one. So our soul can be seen as like the representation of the self, the eternal self that keeps the Akashic record stored, that goes through these different layers and different lives and continues to kind of incarnate into a different body. And that's what I actually see as the personality, is the union of your soul with the body. Because your body's unique. Like, we create our body, we choose what we want in this body, which is also another trippy thing for some people to wrap their minds around, is like, we choose the body, we figure out what we want. It's a lot less, it's all energetic first. Like, it's all intangible, energetic, ethereal stuff before it is the physical. That's what makes the physical. And at least, again, the way I see it, it's in this sense. So when you look at it like that, when you finally have that harmony of like your truth, of just that pureness, that eternal beingness with the temporary, then it's like this unique expression of you can finally be, because again, we get like different genetic imprints from their parents, from our ancestors, but even then we are our ancestors, right? So it's like, it comes into this divine play of living tensionless and allowing life to flow through us. And then from there, the natural just being can be. And that's the coolness, because once we can get into that, just doing that shifts your vibration, your words carry weight. I don't know, you're the one that like, you electrify the room when you walk into it. It's just that type of thing where you're resonating at such a different level that it just naturally attracts people like moth to a flame. And that's the thing, is where you start to transcend. I think it's interesting, because once you have that consciousness shift, I don't think you attract the opposites anymore. It becomes like attracts like.
Love attracts love.
Exactly. So I think it's opposites attract, because you're meant to learn. And once you learn and recognize your truth in yourself, then it's the like attracts like. It's just these powerhouses coming together. And I feel like that's been the coolest thing of manifestation, is like, like, once we really recognize and see it, then you can start working with it.
That's true. Yeah. Once you truly do tap in, then people notice your energy and your vibe. That's the thing too. It's like, even though it is our own journey, and it is something that I can't necessarily say to people, or show people, I can show it in myself, and then real ones will recognize that, real recognize real. They will see your energy and be like, well, something about that guy. What is it about that guy? And if they're receptive enough, they will, go to do yoga classes or hang out with you at the park. Where was it, at the park that you had that thing? And they're just meditate with you. They will. It would just be like a natural magnetism. That vibe, that frequency which is the frequency of love, essentially, is very attractive, because it's the truth, first of all, and it's something that we've been neglected of. But once you get a taste of that, the realness, it's like, I want more of that. I want to keep I want to be around that more often. It's just like it's a never-ending effect of realness that you just want to keep, like genuine, authentically living, is what you want to keep in your experience, for the most part, and it's it's
Mm,
contagious. It's kind of contagious in a way. It's
yeah.
it's pretty cool, man.
It's the pureness of what is, and it cuts through everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it just that's the stuff that gets me. Is I think that's really the role of where those that are aware just need to keep planting seeds where you can. Like it's from that knowing that everyone has their own path. You can't impact anyone's path, but you can still be you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really all we can do at
And
this
that's how
point.
you impact other people's path. Like if you really truly do want to become the Messiah and become like save other people, quote unquote, or save people in your life, maybe you just want to quote unquote wake people up. The only way you can do it is wake yourself up, continually wake yourself up, and then pray and hope that other people follow along too. I guess. I
Yeah.
like what you said, dude, at the beginning of the whole COVID thing. You're like, oh shit, like if all these people not tapped in, then are we gone? Are we lost? But I
Yeah.
don't think it's the
Is it
truth.
over?
No,
Yeah.
I think as long as one person's tapped in, that's all that matters because there's really only truly one of us here. There's one of us here. There's one
Facts.
consciousness. So as long as one person did, that's it. And one person already did a while ago. I don't know
Right.
who it was, but there's been plenty throughout time. So at
Yeah.
least that gives me kind of hope. Is like there's
Mm.
people out there that have been throughout time that are resonating at this. This frequency and this tapping in that we're talking about throughout the whole conversation is tapping in throughout time. You can do that. You could have done that 2,000 years ago. You could have
Yeah.
done that 20,000 years ago, and you can do
Right.
it 2,000 years in the future, and you can do it 20,000 years in the future. It's this forever being able to connect. And
Yeah.
we're already past that point. Even though we're living through, some may say it's Kali Yuga, the dark time, it doesn't matter, man. Like this is just part of the cycle. Like there's already been
Yeah.
somebody here that is part of this collective consciousness that has tapped in, and from there, they're spreading the lessons. Like Buddha, Jesus,
Yeah.
Ramana Maharshi, people of that magnitude, and they already have bestowed this world with their energetic, just their
Yeah.
being, like simply just their being, and from there you can take that as lessons for yourself and live accordingly. So we're already, I don't think we have to worry about, yeah, like time and place for people. Like, you know, we don't have to worry about other people waking up. But I don't think at this point in time it's not for everybody because we have to see, like we said, we have to see what isn't to be what is. So if
Facts.
there were no
Yeah.
examples of like, oh, I don't want to end up like that guy, how that guy thinks, or like how that guy acts, if there were no examples of that, then I wouldn't know how to orient myself into this is how I want to be. You know, I think that's kind of, there is a time and place. Once you realize there's only one consciousness here, you realize that yes, even the people that are sheep, I guess you could say, even the people that are just kind of
Going
not
with the
aware,
herd. Yeah.
they're what?
Going with the herd.
Going with the, I guess you could say going with the herd, they have their own place. That's actually,
That's
um,
it.
I guess that's actually, we can hold them in a certain source of reverence for sacrificing their incarnation here to be able to show us an example of how not to be. That's actually
Yeah.
like a way to love them. It's like, whoa, you're insane, man. Thank you for existing so I don't become insane like you. That's the way I love people because there's just insane people in this world. And I'm just like, dude,
I
thank you
love
for
that.
existing so I don't end up like you.
I love that.
That's the way I see it. So yeah,
That's
time there's
great.
it's we all have our place here. And until we, I guess, maybe mature in how we act and how we utilize our resources on this earth and develop our technologies and our consciousness gradually, we'll all get it in time. Might not be in this lifetime, but I think in time we will get there. If you see us all as one consciousness continually reincarnating through time, we're going to get there, I think. And it might
Yeah.
not be in this lifetime when this video is filmed, but maybe people will be watching this 100 years from now. Like, wow, thankfully those guys did that work for us 100
Right.
years ago.
Well,
Sucks for those guys that they didn't live in heaven on earth, but thanks a lot, Gary and Peter. And people like them, you know? So it's
facts,
almost
man.
like we need to, yeah, we are almost like these I guess the pathfinders of the way, or the pathfinders of the path. Like we are the pathfinders for the people in the future to hopefully see that there is another way to live, that you don't have to get sucked into the narrative that we've been conditioned into our entire lives, and you
Yeah.
can live as a sovereign individual. Um, and you know, you're not trapped in any one way. You are a free person, and you're able to take this life as a human being and live it as a free person, as a free human being, you know,
Right.
because we're being conditioned into as we go into the future, like the part of the sheep or the herd, I guess you could say. It's like a sense of you're either sovereign or free or you're not. Like these
Yeah.
people that get sucked into the narrative, you're not free. Even though like I'm not financially free, I don't have $1 billion. I can't just go to Malibu tomorrow. I'm still free internally. I have a sense
100%.
of like freedom to be able to conduct myself how I want within my circumstances as Gary Haskins. And
Mm.
that mindset is going to be the mindset that I think we're paving the way for. It's a sense
Yeah.
of being able to tune our instrument so we can tune ourselves to a sense of freedom. But
Yeah.
it's all up to us. You got to choose wisely. That's all we can say. You got to do you. You do
Yeah.
you.
And that's the ultimate expression of it though too, right? Is that liberation, enlightenment, whatever people want to call it, is it's meant to be completely uninhibited, completely genuinely yourself.
hmm
And that's the secret sauce, is
Yeah, I don't
but you
care
have
what
to.
anybody says. I don't like I'm living according to this way
Yeah,
my whole
freedom to
life.
be.
There's no one that's gonna take me off of this. There's nothing I'm
Yeah.
gonna read and be like, oh no,
Well,
like
this
I
isn't it.
know, yeah, this isn't it. Like there's a certain that certain realization and awareness and perspective you come to, and it doesn't leave you. You're forever in that, you know.
That. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the thing right there, where I think that's probably even more of the most unfortunate and sad, is to see people who do get the taste and fall back and
Yeah.
just get caught back in the mind game of, oh, it's lost. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's I lost it. Or it's like, no, it's never left you. Like,
Yeah.
but again, that's just the oh,
Part of the process.
that
That's
hit so hard when you said like they're just meant to be the kind of crazy ones and say, hey, thanks for being batshit crazy, for
honestly.
showing me how to not be. But that really is right there, where it's again like it's when we have to look at it. I think we're gonna quickly enter a time where there's gonna need to be a lot of healing.
Yeah,
And I
we're
feel
already
like
there.
that exactly. I mean, it's exactly. We're just starting to hit the curve where it's just gonna, but that's the phase right there where it's going to take a lot of those who recognize everything as grace on this type of level to
hmm
really to help people with that recognition and processing of the bigger scheme of things, where it's like I know certain people that are doing certain things that their life may end soon, and because of that, to me it's I'm grateful for my journey, because it's helped me let go of just like that resentment and kind of like bitterness of just like it didn't need to be like this, just to understanding that they had to go through this,
It
because
did need to be like this.
it's already started to change so many other people that were connected to them. And
Mm.
that's the stuff for me where it's like as you said it, kind of like the sacral. Isn't it funny how we sheeple herd, yet in this sense of looking at it, the sacrificial lamb?
Ooh.
Isn't it trippy?
Wow. Damn, dude.
But it's
That's
like, but
trippy.
they're the ones that are going to be like to really provide the feast of suffering, which will lead to the inevitable breakthroughs of so many. At least
Yeah.
that's where I could see it going with this.
hmm
Yeah.
That's powerful. That's pretty much what
Hmm.
it is. It's a sacrifice. It's like, so if we did set up our whole life from before we were born, technically we're in the bardo state, as people call it, the in between. And you say, all right, you can either become an awakened individual, quote unquote, and go through certain trials and tribulations and come to realizations as this person and realize certain things along the way in your path, or you choose to be the sacrifice. You choose to live your entire life in the darkness for the benefit of others. That's almost more powerful of an incarnation than being this awakened individual, because it's almost like a step further. Like if we do in this, it's like a game of Skyrim. They're choosing like your certain karma and how ways to live through it, I
Oh
guess,
my God, I
ways to
love it.
reap it. Like you're almost like more advanced going into it, knowing that you're going to be living in a facade the whole time. That's
And
powerful, but you're sacrificing.
well, maybe that's some of their karmic aspects.
Mm,
That's what I'm thinking too, because again, we have to think about the full wheel of things, where it's maybe their past debts must mean they have to make a great sacrifice.
yeah, that's probably what it is.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
but because of that, again, and I actually flip it. I think those that chose to awaken in the darkness of the world were the ones that were like, all right, where's our elite soldiers? Where's like the elite spiritual crew? Like,
Yeah.
you guys are gonna have to put up with some shit. And when I mean some shit, I mean a lot of shit. Most of your life. Are you going to put up with this, knowing that you may not know how it's going to turn out? So but I mean, like, that's the thing is, though, it comes back to the sanctity of every role. It's an interconnected puzzle. Everyone plays a part. And without those that are willing to live isolated and to test their, really, it's like Mortal Kombat, like test your might. Like you have to test your might throughout this process with, hey, we're going to send you into this place with all the temptation in the world. You have to find your way home or you're fucked. You know, and like that's kind of like how I feel like it's been experienced, where, and then bringing that sacrificial lamb aspect to it just takes a whole nother level to it, because it's like they fully had to have known, like, you're going to go into this and you may not like how it ends, but you're going to live in the ignorance of bliss until those final moments.
Wow.
Like, that's the stuff that really gets me too, thinking about that, because you think of how confident and comfortable so many people are in these newfound churches where, like, the science, and how skewed and corrupt the oligarchy is. They're just the global, you know, we can get conspiratorial in that sense of just like the 5 corporations or handful of corporations that own the world, you know, that like that you allowed all of these things to impact your free will. Like, to me, that's going to be such a heavy thing to process. Like, I mean, I guess it's just 2 different paths. Like, you chose one, some of us chose like the, you know, the gradual growth up the incline, and some are just going for the exponential. They're looking just to be chill most of the time, and then right as the end, it's going to take off. But like, I prefer the path that I got, so I'm cool with it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if so we're talking about waking up to the
truth of things in this world.
The truth of so you're saying exponential, as in, so people who aren't quote unquote awake at the end of their life, they will reach a point of like waking up? Because I don't know if that's always the case.
I don't think that, but I think with what we're in the context of what we're talking about, the sacrificial lamb, if that makes more sense. I know we're like tiptoeing around words and things, but like it's one of those things where like I feel like a lot of those who are giving away their free will and are going to see the effects of that personally. I think that's going to be the exponential, like, forced awakening, almost like, oh my gosh, I thought I knew this, I didn't know this, now this is happening, now I can't avoid it, it's always going to be a thing. Like, I think that's the stuff that's going to cause a lot of exponential, which is why there's going to be a huge need for people to help heal, because there's going to be a lot of just like mentally broken people, spiritually, emotionally, physically broken people that
they're always
wishing you your best.
Yeah, there already is, man. Right now, we're living through a time where people are really going through it. You know, our society is really going through it. Like, we're really sick. We're really like just lost. You know, if you pay attention to the news a little bit too much, if you pay attention to the narrative a little too much, like, you're gonna get lost in that, and it's gonna bring you down. Like, there is just like this, I don't know, we're all yearning for something. We're all yearning for that connection that we've been talking to, but most people don't even know that's what they're yearning for. You know, like that. We know deep down. I think everybody knows that we're looking for this kind of connection that we're talking about. A kind of a purpose, a more kind of a way to become
more full.
Yeah, that's a good word. More full, just in living as a human being. But we don't know how to get there. But we're never told. Like, this whole thing, we're still figuring it out, honestly. Like, we're still all collectively trying to find the way. But it's like, how do we get people, how does this entire collective consciousness get there? Is it just through time? You think that the sacrificial lambs have to be sacrificed? That sounds so bad. But do you think that there has to be this sense of ignorance and darkness and kind of dis-ease that we're living through, so that as we move through time, we recognize that of our past, and then we recognize, you know, we reap that karma, and then we come into the being that we're supposed to be? Like, do you think so this is all according to plan, or do you think we're, as a human being, we're always going to live in that polarity of there's always going to be people, like, as in this 3D realm, in the, if there are 4D, 5D, in the 3D realm that we're in, the physical world, do you think there's always going to be that sense of like lost in the sauce or sovereign
Mm,
individual mentality?
I think that's the dance that we've been really riding the wave of these past few, I mean, generations probably, since like the world wars. But
Mm,
I think that's kind of where we're at right now, is that Earth herself is changing. There's so many things going on, just planetary, solar wise, just in the cosmos, that we're always developing ourselves towards that union with the one.
yeah,
And that's where I see the sense of the karmic aspects of what's going to happen to some people, is that we're going through a refinement process, just like anyone goes
yeah,
through their own internal one, where it's like some layers are going to have to be peeled away and you're going to have to let go of what doesn't serve you. And in this sense, and the you is the truth of like what is of our
hmm,
universe, so that we are evolving. And if you're not about it, you're not about it here, maybe somewhere else, maybe a different time. um and that's when we start getting into the wild aspects of like the quantum physics, the different dimensions, the planes of things. Because the way I've heard it expressed that resonated the most with me is, there's always the positive and the negative, but
yeah,
we're in the unique experience where they can actually be together, that you have that fluctuation and that dance. And for the human experience to be the human experience, I feel that there always needs to be that type of positive and negative aspect.
mm,
However, I think where we're at in the world, it comes full circle back to like our talk on culture, and just like the how our society is currently structured is in the negative. And
yeah,
that in turn creates this huge veil of illusion that
hmm.
completely distorts what this experience is and
There's
can
no
be.
balance. Hmm.
Exactly. So I think the balance comes into the role of the tilting of the scales, entering the world of the light, coming
Yeah,
back into the harmony of things. Because then from there, we can dance the dance effortlessly. Because, yeah, there's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be people disagreeing and learning how to like overcome their own inner challenges and things. But it drastically changes it from being like, oh, you're from a different country, you have a resource, I don't like the way you look, talk, sound, and I want the things you have, into being, hey, they have a different resource, hey, we have this resource, hey, let's come together to some type of an agreement where we can both mutually benefit from this.
hmm,
And if your people need something, our people can help you. We can educate each other. Let's all travel. Like, let's have these, like, and that's where you start getting into like the hijacking of what we've seen politically, is like open borders, things like that. Like, yeah, all this stuff speaks true to the human spirit, but all of these things have to be done with grace, with tact. It
yeah,
can't just be like full blown, let's make that place that was really bad like this place. It has to
hmm,
be this process of using the heart to actually guide our actions rather than those lower centers.
hmm,
Having that recognition of these upper connections with the intangible spiritual world, with the rooted and groundedness of our being here in the physical experience, but allowing everything to be filtered through the heart.
yeah,
That's where I really see it as like, it's that convergence point from both the lower and the upper, is that it's when we really awaken the full potential of this human experience, we're 100% compassionate beings,
hmm,
100% beings of love, you know,
100%. Yeah.
and that's going to change the way this world is lived. Does it mean that the evil's going to go away and there's not going to be people that kind of choose the kind of like, oh, I'm not going to be an independent thinker, blah, blah, blah? Maybe not, but it's going to be a complete inverse of the rarity as it is to run into people that are tapped in every day versus people who are
Yeah.
asleep. And I think that's the real game changer right there, is because like it has to come to a point where the good outweighs the bad, purely because Earth is a very loving, manifesting based planet. It's a very healing, loving place. I mean, we can look at the cosmos and wonder like all the different plants and animals and, weather systems and patterns we have here. And who knows if other places have it, but all I know is that we have it here. And it's really fucking dope that we could live this life and have so many different experiences in one rock flying through space. And whether or not people jump on all the different aspects of what is the origin of Earth, or what layers of Earth are there, it comes to this recognition that for humans to fully live and live out the best of our lives into like the fullness of what the universe can provide, it stems from love. And until we get that, we'll never have a harmonious society that really speaks to us.
Yeah.
So it has to come back to that point where we value the independent thinker, we value the free thinker, we value the critical thinker, we value the creative, we value the, we value everyone. It's a society based upon namaste, as I see it, like truly giving reverence and bowing to the divine within each being. And if we can do that with every action and have that be the filter, we'll have a dope place. Like,
Yeah.
pretty quick, really. Like, it really isn't that hard. It's just restructuring all the systems. Honestly, I'm a big clear the ground guy, if you couldn't tell in that sense, but just restructuring a lot of these systems we have in place to really serve people. Like let's take a physical, like practical aspect of it, right? Capitalism. Okay, so what does capitalism really mean? The freedom of choice. That's really business wise. It's the freedom of choice. It's not like a communistic, like social, so like I should say, like a how am I spacing on this word? A socialist based country or system where it's like the government provides everything for you. Certain corporations do everything for you. We do, the big brother loves you and cares. Like, it's not that type of vibe. It's this fact that anyone could really create what they want in a free market where other people are going to go to it. Now take this to the next level of what we live in now. We don't live in capitalism. We live in an oligarchy. We live in a handful of corporations that literally are embedded in the governments that decide pretty much whatever the hell is going to go on in the world. And a lot of that is like the military industrial complex, big pharma, big agriculture. And because of that in itself, their freedom of choice is just an illusion.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing, is like coming back to a society where it's like people actually have the power to do what they want, and the freedom to be secure and safe and not have to worry about some shit going down where you're going to lose everything because your government wants to tax you out of the wazoo. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's all about restructuring things, because it's like, for the most part, people are self-governed and self-led. We don't need these authority figures saying a lot, but what we do need is a collection of beings all throughout the world, kind of like a Star Trek society, right? That like, hey, we're all living on this rock. What's going to be the best thing so we can all survive and we can all live great lives, and we don't have to worry about starvation, where there's no energetic imprints of suffering and pain somewhere on the planet that are impacting everyone else. Like, and once we start approaching it from that interconnected aspect, I think we're going to drastically mitigate the self-sabotaging ways of life, that it'll just be all lessons through grace, whether it be a good thing, a loss, or something. It'll be the natural process of what we're supposed to live through, just without all the bullshit and the convenience of it. I think that's the difference. Is like, it's maybe our ancestors could talk telepathically to people they've met once on a trade route, but if they didn't know someone, they couldn't just randomly meet someone like online. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the purpose of what we're entering into now, is how to really utilize the material aspects of technologies to really bring out the fullness of the human experience, of the loving experience. Because I mean, again, like, we're across a continent right now having a chat. Like, that's pretty awesome. Could we have done that back in the day? I don't know. We don't know. Maybe they did have some dope tech and we just didn't know, or maybe they had stuff way more advanced than us. But either way, we're not wise enough to know what they did. So all we can know is what we know now, and just be like, well, we have all these really cool technologies, but are we using them with spiritual maturity? Hell no. Could we? Yeah, we really could. And it would drastically change the way we interact with the world. Like that.
For sure. Yeah, it comes down to spiritual.
A long way to answer your question, I think.
No, I get it though. Yeah, it comes down to spiritual maturity. Because like, I mean, people talk shit about capitalism, but capitalism in its purest essence, I guess, is just the freedom to choose and live according to how you want to live. I guess in its pure, you create your own value. But it's like, it's the system isn't corrupt, I guess, per se. It's the individuals that
we're living in a different system entirely.
Yeah, it's not really that. It's not the purest form of where you create your own value and you have your own market. It's not, it's not really tied to capitalism. If you built systems that aren't really associated with that, like they're associated with more so control, and that we're not acting from, like, if we were all in the same wavelength of like namaste, we're all in this together, then capitalism would be perfect, and there would be no entities and central entities to say, oh, you can't do this, or you can't do that, or waiting for somebody to save us. And I guess in our purest form, if we all are on the same page, it's best for us to be in a free market society, It's
Yeah.
best for us to be able to move how we want to move, I guess you could
Yeah.
say. And
And have access to what people need access to.
yeah,
It's just the
exactly.
choice. It's just the choice, man. So I think it comes back to just having a world built upon freedom.
Hmm.
Like that's the only way we can truly be liberated as a society, is that we actually value everything that brings us to a point of you have a choice. Like the fact that like if I collect rainwater, I could get a ticket or arrested, you know what I mean? Or like some fat fine by the city, or that I have to get permission to get solar panels, that you have to
Yeah.
get, like there's so many things like that where you look at it where it's like it's just been siphoning so much choice and opportunity and growth that could really happen here, because there's so many hoops you have to jump through. And when
Hmm.
people are stuck in the root and they're already focusing on scarcity and don't have enough and they're already fearing and freaking out all the time, you don't even have a second to breathe. And that was the
Yeah.
beauty of like everything this past like year and a half, is like some people finally got a chance to breathe.
Hmm.
And because of that, I've seen a lot of people I didn't expect wake up, which has been pretty cool. And which gives
Yeah.
me a lot of hope that it's just like, oh, so all we really just need is a second just to relax.
Hmm.
We're so contracted. All we need is just that, and then it just naturally happens where it's like, yes, like let's go. But that's what I think about in terms of like the the forward thinking mentality of like what we can create as those who are in the know of some of many truths, right? That we can start to pivot ourselves and our experience. Like you're doing this show, I do my show. Like we do these, we all do our things because we have fun and we like it. And then
Hmm.
people also like that, and they attract them, they get gravitated towards it, pulled towards it. And in that sense, it's one of these things that when we build and value a world based on creativity and reverence of the divine within each being and freedom and love, like that's a combination that really can't get too fucked up. Like there's going to be anomalies every now and then, yeah, but for the most part it's going to be able to really transform those people and those experiences, because it's going to be such a healing based culture. So
Yeah.
it's like I think that's the true heaven on earth that we can create, is just this dope place where we value art, we value every aspect of the experience. We teach kids to connect themselves with dance and music and give them the tool belt of all the things they could learn and want to learn creative expression wise, and then just go say have fun with whatever you want to do, and really develop themselves of how they want to be as a person. And it just comes back to really ending the influences by creating systems that make them obsolete. Like no one's going to want to go to a school that doesn't offer music, sports, all these other things if you offer that when they're kindergarten. Like you can
Hmm.
have dance, music, art, like you have all the fun things. And then from there we start to really vote with our dollar, vote with whatever we choose. But like again, until we come back into a society where people can barter without getting like persecuted by the government or like taxes and IRS and stuff like that, then we just gotta burn it all down and just start from scratch. Like
Seriously. Yeah. We have to create new systems based upon different values because our systems aren't based upon the correct values right now. It's based upon lower chakras. The,
yeah,
the systems we have are based upon, like you said, fear. People don't they want protection from these entities, and that's kind of the illusion that these things are painting to people. But through that, they control, like
yeah,
through their
100%.
through the illusion of protection is actually the action of control, which is the opposite of freedom. It's the antithesis of the system that we're talking about, the system of
Yeah,
love.
yeah,
And yeah, we just got to get rid of it, bro. We just got to build a new system. We got to stop using the system's money. That's what it comes down to. Once we can get a different source of value where we say, it might be cryptocurrency, maybe. Like you said,
yeah,
maybe until we go back to bartering. But we have to stop using, how are we controlled? We're controlled through money. So once we
right.
can stop using this system's money, what are they going to tell me? Once I can get paid, if I can get paid in Bitcoin, or Ethereum, any kind of cryptocurrency. We'll say
Yeah,
hypothetically any kind of different currency, right? If I can get
yeah,
paid in that and work through this society and live how I want to live and not have to pay taxes or not have to really rely on any kind of monetary source of value that isn't actually value, an idea of value. that they tell us is value,
Mm,
then I'm free to kind of move how I want to move in this life. Like once I can just say, because the whole basis of these systems, quote
yeah,
unquote, is the dollar.
yeah,
It's fiat currency. But once we can move past that, the way that they control us, which is at the basic level is through money, then that's how we create new systems. Is we're
yeah,
literally creating our own system through our own money, I think. And I
yeah,
think that's what cryptocurrency is. It's where
yeah.
we're taking these systems that they have in place for us that haven't really changed since, maybe hundreds of years, like the whole idea of the banking system, and we're revolutionizing that and making it into our own way of being. And that's kind of what crypto is allowing people to do. It's allowing people to become the sovereign individual that we're all meant to be, because
And be
you don't have to be tied to that system if you
yeah,
don't want to be. I
in
mean, we're
charge
not
of your
there
own
yet.
money. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, dude. We're not
I
there
feel
yet.
it.
We're still developing it, but that's the whole point. Like some people just want to make a quick buck on Dogecoin, but you got to understand what's going on behind the scenes, and the real purpose of what cryptocurrency is we're freeing ourselves from uh, wage slavery, from
Exactly.
this system of
Middleman,
control, the
middleman
middleman.
that
The,
use your money. That is, and it's all imaginary shit anyway. Like, why not just do a different type of imaginary thing?
exactly. It's more
We determine it.
it's a little less imaginary than the system that we have. And the thing is it's a little less imaginary, and it's not, you can't manipulate it. Like there's no
Yeah,
central entity middleman that is able to play games with your money that makes it so
yeah.
your money goes a little less further, and you can
Like a
buy less
yeah,
things, which means you have to work more, which
yeah,
means you have less free time, which means you have less time to be able to expand and explore your own consciousness, which means you have less time to evolve. It's all connected.
yeah,
It's all
dude. Yeah,
connected.
dude.
So
It is.
once you're able to free yourself from the shackles of debt of that, what the world is built up for itself, then yeah, you can't really live to your fullest extent. But the purpose of cryptocurrency, I see it in the future, is being able to free ourselves from that. And what
I
that
agree
means
with
for
you.
society, I don't know. Is it gonna topple the, like,
It's gonna
it's
be
gonna
trippy.
change.
It's gonna
It's
be
getting,
amazing. Well,
dude.
think about the stuff that's already being used. Like I look at like RippleNet XRP. It's already been used a lot in like Brazil and in like a lot of like European countries from people that have been moving and migrating over there. And the
Hmm.
fact that it's so fast, it's like 3 seconds. Oh, my family has money now,
Yeah,
like
because this
across
is
the
it.
globe.
It's better than our system that we have
Yeah,
now.
because there's no fucking middleman.
There's no middleman.
There's no, oh, we're gonna take your money in like 2 minutes, but you're gonna get it back in 5 days because you returned something.
Hmm.
There's none of this like, oh, we just don't have it. Sorry.
Hmm.
And I think that'd be a really powerful thing if everyone in the world just went and tried to withdraw all their money at once, just broke the system.
That wouldn't
We could
work.
do it. We could do it like that. We could really do it like that.
Yeah.
Or transfer it into your own crypto or something like that. Like in terms of just the progression of how I think things are going, it's either going to go like I think it's going to be an integration of both, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be
Hmm.
somehow tied together between like physical metals, like actual like commodities, like things that we use for technology, for building. It's going to be like you own that and you own crypto. And at one point there's going to be a bridge between where there might be like a representation of it, but like I think that's where it comes back into giving people the power of their own wealth. Either you physically own it, you have it in your possession, or you have your own bank in your wallet,
Yeah.
your in your phone or your
Hmm.
computer or whatever it is. Because again, I think that's the stuff that's the energies that are breaking through is like this resonance and knowing of accountability. There is
Yeah.
nothing more personal accountable than you having to have your passphrases, your key codes, you know what I mean? All your different passwords for
Like
whatever
you
crypto
have your
wallets you
money. There's
have.
nobody that holds your value.
Exactly. Like,
It's a different consciousness. It really
yeah,
is. Like there's no like, oh, the bank has my money. They're taking care of it for me. Like, no, I am
yeah.
this bank. It's pretty cool.
I better not lose that shit.
Yeah.
Like, because again, if you do, we've seen it. Sometimes they can recover, but it's lost. It's gone
Hmm.
because it's your fucking responsibility. And that's the
Yeah.
thing right there where it's like, that's the cool part about the world we're entering is because it is that self sovereignty and
Hmm.
that type of freedom. And I'm right there with you in it. Like, oh, dude, like I could talk cryptos for another hour. Where are we at? That's so wild. Time skip. I love it. But that's just the thing.
We can
man,
go into
where-
crypto, man. I'm big into the idea of cryptocurrency.
Oh, I got a hard out at 5. I don't know if I could dabble that.
Okay, we can save that for another time. We can do a
Dude, we'll
conscious
have
crypto
to.
talk.
Oh my gosh. Yo, we should. It'd be really cool to do that. And then I actually know some other people. We can almost do like a panel.
Let's do it. It means a
Okay.
lot. The cryptocurrency is huge, dude. If you want to talk about like in the material form where we're going, in terms of like our consciousness evolving, it's being represented in cryptocurrency. Like
Right.
that's how we're freeing ourselves from
Quantum
this.
connections, instantaneous. You know what I mean? No, dude, I'm right there with you. And it's really interesting just to see how fast it's emerging and how quick. And the thing is, like, I think that's the coolest part is a lot of the people that I know that are really into cryptos, a lot of them are spiritually aligned people. A lot of them are tapped in.
It all relates, man.
And see, this is what I think is so opportunistic and extremely I'm hopeful for, because there's so much power in we're like the 1% now. Like I look at certain holdings that I have and I'm like, oh wow, like top 2% holder in this crypto. Oh wow, top like something percent. I'm like, I don't even have like that much of that one. And that's still the top of where people are at. And it's like, holy shit, like when this stuff really starts to take off,
and it's
oh yeah, it's gonna. I think it's gonna happen. I think it's gonna, there's no way it doesn't happen by October. Personally, I think we're gonna see a huge mooning event, probably like September, early October.
The next year.
Exactly. I think by Christmas, it's going to be bananas. I think it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be like, that's what everyone's hot cake is going to be. Like, oh, there's going to be some cryptos. But that's the stuff for me where you're even seeing a thinning out of just those that aren't aligned with it, because those that don't get the full potential of what cryptos can do in terms of the interconnectedness, the instantaneous transfer of wealth, like the mass transfer of wealth that we're about to experience with just people that are tapped in, is they judge it so much. They get so uncomfortable and fear-based that it's not a bank, that they don't comprehend the fact of what it really means to be in control of your own money.
Yeah.
They don't fully get the sense. They just think it's the make-believe thing because they still hold that the current fiat oil-based systems, all like US dollar oil-based system, is like somehow legit, when it's like, okay, do people forget that like we used to be gold-backed in like the 70s? Like this really wasn't that long ago. Like a lot of the people that I know that are super skeptical of cryptos is like, you lived through it. You knew that system was more efficient. And now we're in this oil fossil fuel eventually gonna go away, get phased out type of economy. Like, get out of here. It has to be something that's really built to last and that is incredibly secure and gives you the freedom of choice fully. Like you can't be kicked out of a bank because of your political views with cryptos. Like you can't do what's happening with that type of stuff. Like you're your own anonymous little number. Like, could someone track your IP? Sure, but that's what VPNs and stuff are for. Like, I don't know. I'm right there with you. Like, I get really giddy talking about cryptos because there's so much potential with how it can change everything.
It's gonna change.
No more waiting. I mean, just think about that. How much of our economy and like global economy, and actually that's probably more so the scope of it too, in terms of big corporations and governments, is like how much humanitarian aid is withheld for days because it's such a large amount in the bank. How much in terms of single parents, someone getting a donation, how quick and slow that takes to process. Because I know like even in Venmo, like I get paid from clients on Venmo. Even if I initiate that with like, I could do the 10% out instantly, but you're taking 10%. No, fuck that. Like, I'll do the 2 to 3 days. You know what I mean? But still, for me, it's like if I needed that would suck.
Yeah,
that would
exactly.
Suck. So that's the coolest thing about it, is just like, oh man, like
it's a win-win. No matter, you can look at it at the micro level with your clients or trying to buy some pizza or something. Right. And it's a win-win at the macro level, especially at the macro level, in terms of being able to send large amounts of money at an instant anywhere in the world. Instantly. There's no fee. There's no middleman. I could send you $1 million right now and you'd get it in a few minutes. And there's a minimal fee.
If that, sometimes
like
exactly. 6 seconds. Oh,
you know how revolutionary, like that's crazy. That's crazy, bro. Hey, we can get into this into another conversation. I can already tell it's going to be another good combo from that. But yeah, bro, it's all connected. one way or the other, as above, so below. It's one way or the other. It's all connected, and it's just something you got to tap into. And once you tap in,
Yeah.
you don't. There's no other way. The way is the way is the way, and
Yeah.
that's it, man. I guess we can sum it up at that. Do you have anything that you want to wrap this beautiful conversation up with? This was
Oh
great.
man, there's so many points we covered. I think that's the coolest thing that
Yeah, I
happens
don't
every time we
even like.
chat.
Yeah, this was great.
I'll try to bring something back from the beginning, right? Bring it full circle moment. There is nothing more important, especially now, than protecting yourself on the energetic level.
Mm,
Like, because in truth, when the external search ends, you're no longer feeding the inside with something from outside of you.
ooh, yeah.
You're feeding that light so then you can radiate.
Yep.
And what helps us radiate brighter is by doing the things that bring us love and joy. So just, yeah, for those listening, I just hope that's what you take away from this, is like there's a lot of depths and layers that we dove into, and many things that you
Mm-hmm.
could gain from everything with this, because it was filled with wisdom nuggets. I love it. And I know I'm gonna have to marinate in this conversation after, because it's like so many different things to explore,
Yeah.
different points of revelation, where it's just like, the one thing that I do know is that, just as we were talking about, that like attracts like. The realness and the energies are known in the heart. And when you can connect with people like that, infinite possibilities and doors open up. So
Mm-hmm.
just keep doing it, because that's what's really going to help us progress this building of the heaven on earth.
Mm-hmm. And you'll live a happier life, a little more
Yeah.
peaceful life.
Yeah, life will be pretty dope too.
Yeah.
Like,
That life becomes a beautiful journey at that point. Once you can radiate at the frequency of love, then love brings love. Like it just gets better and better. It's an amazing thing. And it's a never ending process, you know.
yeah, you always got to feed the flame. And
Feed the flame of love, y'all. Well, thank you, Peter Lucas.
Thank
This was
you.
amazing. And thank you for anybody that if anybody did listen this long, you're a real one. Thank you for joining us along on this journey
Facts.
of space, time, the mind, reality, non-reality. This was a journey, man. This was great. Definitely do this again. Definitely
Always.
connect for a Conscious Crypto episode.
I love it. I love it already.
Other than that, yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. And thanks again, Peter. And namaste, brother.
Namaste to you, Gary. Always a blessing, bro.
Have a good night, bro.